Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives in New York City. Not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions and lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Meshegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proceed, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. Cupcakes, sweet and sassy. Not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Good morning. Good morning, my friends. Today is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. And today we are going back to Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham, Massachusetts for the trial of Dr. Harry Tuerk. Ingolf Tuerk was a robotic surgeon out of Dover, Massachusetts. This is a case that had originally been assigned to Justice Cannoni and has been reassigned to another judge named Mark Hallal. I have a playlist on this case. We've been over it. I think there's at least 4 streams on the Tuerk case, and it's going to be really interesting to see what another judge in Norfolk Superior acts like and how he runs his courtroom. And despite the fact that it's in the same building as the Karen Reed case, it may turn out very, very differently. Just a friendly reminder that this is not an airport, and if you are going to leave to watch something somewhere else, you do not need to announce your departure. Thank you so much for playing. Today is the day that Katie McLean deserves respect. She deserves her case to be covered, and that's what I'm going to be doing today for as long as I can. It is a travel day for me. Later this afternoon, I need to get on an airplane, so I'm going to do as much as I can with you today. I will not be streaming tomorrow, but I will tell you where you can go watch this live stream tomorrow. Court was delayed. It was supposed to start at 9 o'clock, and it seems to me that the judge has just taken the bench a few moments ago. So again, if you are ahead in another stream or watching this somewhere else, please do not spoil it for the rest of the viewers who would like to watch it in our real time with me. But this way we can fast forward a little bit through the breaks. So let's get back to Norfolk Superior Court. Rest in peace, Katie McLean. Many of you know the backstory here. Many of you, I've heard from many friends of Katie McLean, and I think they are in the courtroom. This was supposed to be in courtroom number 25, which is the small courtroom where Karen Reed's trial was held. However, it looks like it's moved to a different courtroom. But Law and Crime has decided to cover it. And so here we are. Let's see how it goes. We'll put the closed captions on for those of you who need them. And if the volume needs to be adjusted, my mods will let me know. If you can't hear it on your end, just turn up your device. It depends on what kind of device you're on. If it glitches for you, just refresh your browser and or go out of the stream and come back in. I do not know how long this trial is supposed to last. If anybody has an answer for that, let me know. Also, the defense attorney in this case is a man named Kevin Reddington, who many of you may know. He was also the attorney for Jennifer McCabe during the Rule 17 motions to obtain Jennifer McCabe's records. The phone records in the Karen Reed case. He has said many nice things about me on live television. So he seems to think that I am a credible source of information on YouTube and not salacious at all. So thank you, Kevin Reddington. We're gonna see how he behaves in a courtroom and what he's like, what his style is like. So this is gonna be real interesting. God save the Commonwealth, my friends. God save the Commonwealth. Let's see what happens in another part of the Norfolk Superior Courthouse building. Here we go. That is the defendant, Dr. Tuerk. He did get a haircut, it seems, in prison. He's been held since 2020 when he was arrested. This happened all the way back in 2020. Looks like his hair was cut. Somebody cut his hair with a hammer, is what it looks like to me. But there he is, Dr. Tuerk, robotic surgeon out of Dover, who is accused of murdering his wife, Katie McLean. And there is some evidence, he did confess. So let's see how Kevin Reddington tries to defend this, tries to spin it. I think he's going to say that it's self-defense. But let's see. He's a big guy, right? He's a big guy. I'm glad we got to see him stand up.
Just remember, whatever you say, if this is not a flag.
There was just a hot mic moment for Kevin Reddington. He was talking to his client. He said, just remember whatever you say. And then I guess he realized it and muted the mic. Oh, excellent. So we just heard from the clerk, or my paralegal did, that the schedule for Tuerk is only half days until deliberations. So we may be able to get through the whole court date today. So that's great news. Dr. Tuerk did move for a change of venue out of Norfolk County because of not only the Karen Reed supporters that are going to be outside the courthouse beginning next Tuesday when the jury is scheduled, but for many other reasons, like lots of publicity from the YouTubers such as myself. So the judge said no, they're in Norfolk County. Fast forward because we're a little bit behind real time. This looks like the big courtroom where Karen Reed's pretrial stuff was held before the first. We have Taco Tuesdays, but today's Thursday. There he is, hammer haircut Harry. I'll allow it. This is a jury trial. Thanks, Robert. It's a jury trial. They started picking on I believe, Tuesday.
You may be seated.
What's on the ceiling, Harry? What's on the ceiling? Thank you, Nicola. We have the funniest chat on YouTube. If you're here for the first time, welcome. They're called the Snark Tank for a reason. Miss 86 Scorp says the haircut is called the Flintstone Special. I want to hear the all rise.
All rise.
We lost Mr. Reddington.
Nope.
Take it. It's like literally chicken scratch. I couldn't actually see that going.
Can you hear the hot mic? Somebody's talking about chicken scratch. They're worried about me covering this trial? This is Judge Mark Hallal, Hallal.
Mike, we're all set.
Mike, we're all set. You can hear like their walkie-talkies. We might have good audio today. Shocking. It's shocking. She died from a strangulation, and Dr. Tuerk allegedly confessed. Well, he did confess. They recorded his confession in the hospital. Here's the interesting thing, too. A lot of the same players as in the Karen Reed case, including Proctor, who apparently they're not going to call.
All rise, please. There is entering.
Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Fanning, Garino, DeChico. They're all going to be witnesses, except maybe they won't call Proctor. Somebody needs to tell them about the hot mic. I think it's the female. I think the ADA is a female. I think that's who it is.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Judge Hallal, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, now sitting in Dedham, within and for the County of Norfolk, for the transaction of criminal business. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and this honorable court. This court is now open. You may be seated.
For the record, before the court is Commonwealth versus Ingolf Tuerk, 20 CR 138. The parties are present. Our 16 jurors are present. The matter is on for trial.
Okay, Margaret, do you need to do anything?
God save the Commonwealth.
Sure, I'll ask some questions.
Okay, welcome back, jurors. Thank you for your patience. Let me just ask all of you. So I asked you individually before you left here, either Tuesday or yesterday, to follow some instructions that I gave you about not talking about this case or any other case. Was everybody able to follow those instructions?
Yes.
If you were not able, please raise your hand. All right, no hands are being raised. Ms. Sandal's going to go through some preliminary matters. Then I'm going to give you some brief instructions, and then we're going to get into opening statements. Thank you.
So we're going to first swear you in as trial jurors. So if you could each stand and raise your right hand. Do each of you solemnly swear that you shall well and truly try and true deliverance make between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar, according to the law and the evidence, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Please be seated.
I like the clerk. She has a nice smile.
Members of the jury, hearken to this indictment. Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Action Number 2082 CR 00138, Offense 1, charging murder in the first degree. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Norfolk to wit, at the Superior Court begun and holden at Dedham, within and for the County of Norfolk, on the 5th Wednesday of July 2020, the jurors for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on their oath present that Ingolf Tuerk of Dover in the County of Norfolk, on or about and between May 14th and 15th of 2020, at Dover in the County of Norfolk, did assault and beat Kathleen McLean with intent to murder such person, and by such assault and battery did kill and murder the said Kathleen McLean in violation of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 265, Section 1. To this indictment, the defendant at the bar pleads not guilty, and for trial places himself upon the country, which country you are. You are sworn to try the issues. If he is guilty, you will say so. If he is not guilty, you will say so and no more. Members of the jury, hearken to your evidence.
Hearken to your evidence.
So jurors, you'll be responsible for deciding this case. Please pay close attention to the evidence you will see and hear during this trial. When the evidence is complete, I will explain the legal rules that you must apply to decide this case. You'll then meet together in private to consider the evidence, apply those rules, and work together to reach a verdict. Before we start the trial itself, I'll give you some initial instructions. I'll explain the indictment that the clerk just read out loud and describe what will happen during the trial. I will then explain my role as the judge, the lawyer's role, and your role as jurors. I will discuss some of the legal rules that apply in this case, and I'll explain some important things that you must do and that you must not do during this trial. You may have noticed there is a camera in the courtroom. Please know the cameraman is not permitted to show any juror at any time during the trial. That is, the cameraman is prohibited from broadcasting or recording any images of jurors. I suggest that you ignore the camera and not let it distract you. A moment ago, Ms. Sandel read the language of the indictment in this case. An indictment is a legal document that formally accuses someone of a crime. In less formal terms, the indictment in this case charges the defendant with committing murder. The indictment is not evidence in this case, and the fact that the defendant is facing this charge does not mean that he is guilty of committing any crime. An indictment is merely a piece of paper that formally charges someone to get them to trial in the Superior Court. As I told you when we were choosing our jurors, the defendant has pleaded not guilty to the charge. At the end of the trial, you will decide whether the prosecution has proved the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. When I finish with these initial instructions, the prosecutor and the defense counsel will make opening statements. An opening statement is a summary of what the lawyer expects the evidence will show. After the opening statements, you'll hear testimony from various witnesses. The evidence may also include documents and other things. The prosecution will call witnesses first, then the defendant will have a chance to call additional witnesses if he chooses to do so. Both sides may question each witness. Again, you must remember the defendant is presumed to be innocent and has absolutely no obligation to call or question witnesses or to present any evidence at all. After you see and hear all the evidence, each side will make closing arguments to summarize the evidence and to suggest conclusions you may reach based on the evidence and the law. The lawyer's opening statements and closing arguments may help you make sense of the evidence you hear and see during the trial, but the openings and closings are not evidence. At the end of the trial, I'll instruct you in detail on the legal rules you must apply in deciding this case. You will then discuss the case in private and work together as a jury to reach a verdict. Now, my job as the judge in this case is to make sure the case is tried fairly, efficiently, and according to the law. I must make sure that you hear and see only evidence that is allowed under our rules of evidence. Those rules determine what evidence the lawyers may and may not present to you. The purpose of these rules is to make sure that what you see and hear in this trial is relevant to the case and appropriate for you to consider. If one of the lawyers says objection, that means the lawyer thinks that a particular answer or exhibit violates the rules of evidence. If I am not persuaded by the objection, I will say overruled. That means that the witness may answer the question, or the other party may show you the exhibit, and you may consider the answer or exhibit as evidence. If I instead say sustained, that means the witness may not answer the question, or the party may not show you the exhibit, because under our rules, you may not consider the answer or exhibit. If I sustain an objection, you may not talk about or try to guess what the evidence might have been. There may be times when I instruct you to disregard something or allow what we call a motion to strike something that you have already heard or seen. If that happens, that means that the testimony or exhibit I tell you to disregard or that I strike is not evidence and you may not consider it. As the judge in this case, I must also explain the law to you. At the end of the trial, I'll give you detailed instructions about the law you must follow in order to decide this case. I'll give you those instructions orally, and we'll also give you written copies to read while we work together to reach a verdict in this case. The lawyers have important roles in this trial. Their job is to bring to your attention the evidence and arguments that best supports their position. They may also object to evidence offered by the other side, as I just discussed with you. Please do not hold it against the lawyers if they make an objection. The lawyers have to let me know when there is a potential issue about whether you may see, hear, or consider something. You, as the jurors, have the most important role in this trial. After you've heard and seen all of the evidence, you will decide who and what to believe and whether the prosecution has proved that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged based on the legal principles that I will explain to you. You must decide this case based only on the evidence you see and hear during this trial and on my instructions and the law. You may not decide this case based on suspicion, guesswork, or speculation. The evidence consists of the testimony of witnesses, as you recall it, and any documents or other things that become exhibits. Other things you will see and hear during the trial are not evidence. For example, the attorney's opening statements and closing arguments are not evidence, and the questions the attorneys ask are not evidence either. A witness's answers are evidence, but a lawyer's questions are not. Now, a very important part of your job as jurors is to decide who and what to believe. Whether testimony is contradicted or not, it is up to you to decide whether you believe it. You may believe everything a witness says, part of it, or none of it. The same is true of each exhibit. You must decide whether you believe what it shows or not. I have no opinion about who or what you should believe or about how you should decide this case.
What?
So please don't take anything I say or do during the trial to suggest to you what to believe or how to decide this case. Now, our system of justice depends on judges like me and jurors like you being able and willing to make careful and fair decisions. All people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice, regardless of their race, national origin, religion, or any other personal characteristic. You've agreed to be fair, and I'm sure that you want to be fair, but that's not always easy. Let me share a few strategies. Slow down, do not rush any decision. Keep an open mind as you listen to the evidence. Also, as you listen to testimony about the people involved in this case, consider those people as individuals rather than as members of any particular group. All we ask is that you individually and as a group do your best to resolve this case based on the evidence and the law without sympathy, bias, or prejudice, to the best of your ability as human beings. Now, there are certain legal rules that you
Okay, this is Judge Mark Hallal. For those people who are asking, all of the show notes below the video have all of the information about the case, all of the witnesses you can expect to see that we've seen in the Karen Reed trial for the most part. So if you have any questions or you're wondering what's happening, just read the show notes below because I've made them very specific for this case, and hopefully you'll enjoy.
must follow in this case. I'll discuss them in more detail at the end of the trial. But here are some key things you should know from the beginning. Now, as I told you during the jury selection process, every person who is accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent of that crime. The defendant is presumed innocent of the charge in this case. That means you must consider him to be innocent now and must still consider him to be innocent at the end of the trial unless the prosecution has proved beyond a reasonable doubt through evidence presented during the trial that the defendant committed the crime charged. I'll explain what I mean by reasonable doubt in just a moment. The defendant does not have to do anything to convince you that he is innocent. He does not have to explain anything. He does not have to testify. He does not have to call or question witnesses or provide any evidence at all because you must presume that he is innocent. Instead, it is up to the Commonwealth to prove the charge against the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. This burden of proof never shifts to the defendant. At the end of the trial, after you've heard and seen all of the evidence, you'll deliberate with each other, meaning you will discuss the evidence and decide on your verdict. If you have a reasonable doubt about the defendant's guilt, then your verdict must be not guilty. You may find the defendant guilty of a charge only if all the deliberating jurors agree that the Commonwealth has proved the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. So the burden is on the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the the charge made against him. What is proof beyond a reasonable doubt? The term is often used and probably pretty well understood, though it is not easily defined. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all possible doubt, for everything in the lives of human beings is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. A charge is proved beyond a reasonable doubt if, after you've compared and considered all of the evidence, you have in your minds an abiding conviction to a moral certainty that the charge is true. When we refer to moral certainty, we mean the highest degree of certainty possible in matters relating to human affairs based solely on the evidence that has been put before you in this case. I told you that every person is presumed to be innocent until he or she is proved guilty, and that the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. If you evaluate all of the evidence and you still have a reasonable doubt remaining, the defendant is entitled to the benefit of that doubt and must be acquitted.
What?
It is not enough for the Commonwealth to establish a probability, even a strong probability, that the defendant is more guilty than not guilty. That is not enough. Instead, the evidence must convince you of the defendant's guilt to a reasonable and moral certainty, a certainty that convinces your understanding and satisfies your reason and judgment as jurors who are sworn to act conscientiously on the evidence. That is what we mean by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. As you heard, the defendant is charged with murder. I'll give you a full instruction on murder at the end of the trial. At the end of the trial, when you meet in private to deliberate, you'll have all the exhibits with you. We cannot provide you with transcripts of any witness's testimony, however. So you'll have to rely on your memory of what each witness tells you.
No transcripts. I don't know if he said no readbacks or if he'll say no readbacks, but they have to take copious notes.
You may take notes during the trial if you wish. Our court officers will give you a notebook or a notepad and a pen or a pencil. Some jurors find it helpful to take notes while listening to the evidence. It may help them to focus on the testimony and remember what the witnesses said. Some of you may not want to take notes, which is fine. Whether you take notes is entirely up to you. Whether you take notes or not, you need to pay close attention to each witness and what they say. In deciding who and what to believe, you should watch and listen to each witness carefully. Think about whether the witness seems believable, whether the witness's memory seems reliable, and anything else about how the witness testifies and what the witness says that helps you decide whether and how much to believe the witness. When you deliberate at the end of the trial, remember that it is your memory that counts. Your notes may help jog your memory about what a witness said, but they are not a substitute for what you or the other jurors remember about the testimony. Do not assume that because you or another juror wrote something down, that it is more accurate than you or another juror's memory of what the witness actually said. Your notes are confidential. No one, including me, will read them. The court officers will collect your notebooks and pens at the end of each trial day and keep them safe until they are returned to you the next morning. When the trial is over, the court officer will destroy the notes. Now, if you have any trouble hearing or seeing during the trial, please raise your hand or let a court officer know, and we'll make any necessary adjustments. We generally take a morning recess at about 11 a.m., but if you need a break at any other time, just raise your hand or let a court officer know, and we'll take a break. Also, we want you to be comfortable. If you're too hot or too cold, let us know, and we'll try to adjust the temperature.
Wow.
You also may see clerks and court.
No threats to turn off the fan if the witnesses don't speak loudly enough. And you know what's weird? This is the big courtroom, right? This is the downstairs courtroom, the very large courtroom that Karen Reed's pretrial stuff was in. And so I don't know what I was going to say, but the audio is really good and we can hear what's going on. But in that little tiny courtroom with Judge Cannoni, she kept threatening to shut off the fan if the witnesses weren't speaking loudly enough. And that courtroom is so tiny compared to this one that, you know, mind numbing already. The difference in judges is dramatic.
Officers coming and going. Please know that is not to distract you. It is merely to make sure that we keep the many other cases in this building moving forward. So don't pay any attention to it. If you need to communicate with me during the trial, please let a court officer know. or give the court officer a note to bring to me. Finally, there are a few things that you need to do and other things that you must not do during this trial. Keep an open mind throughout this trial. You must not decide the case until after you've heard and seen all of the evidence and listened to my final instructions at the end of the trial. Do not discuss the evidence or this case with other jurors until you start your formal deliberations at the end of the trial. This is because it can be hard to keep an open mind if two or more of you start discussing the case in the middle of the trial. Do not talk or communicate with anyone else about this case until after you reach and deliver your verdict and I tell you that you have completed your jury service.
And do not go to the American Legion Hall because somebody may be following you and your conversations may be recorded. If you know, you know.
This is because you have to decide this case based solely on the evidence presented in this courtroom and must not consider other information or opinions. When I say that you may not communicate with anyone about this case before you've reached a verdict, that means you may not do so in any way, including through a cell phone or other device. So until you reach a verdict, you may not text, chat, email, tweet, blog, or post anything about the case using social media, other electronic media, or anything else. You have to wait until the trial is over and you've reached a verdict before you say anything about this case to anyone else. You may not talk to the lawyers, the parties, or the witnesses during the trial. If the attorneys or other trial participants see you and turn away, they are not being rude. They are simply following the rule that they may not speak with you during the trial. During this trial, you must not read, watch, or listen to anything about this case that may appear in any news media, social media, or any other source. If there's any press or other coverage about this case, you must ignore it. Do not do any research or investigation about the case online or in any other way, or have anyone else do that for you. Do not visit any place mentioned during the trial. Do not Google or search for the names of anyone participating in this case or anything else about it. Again, this is because you must decide this case based solely on the evidence in the law presented to you in this courtroom. The instructions I just gave to you apply not only to this case, but to the case starting in this courthouse next week, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed.
Interesting.
That case has absolutely nothing to do with your duty to determine the facts in this case, and please do not let it distract you in any way.
Please do not be distracted by the supporters, disruptors, and protractors outside the courthouse. Protractors. Thank you, Midnight Mike, for gifting 5. You're amazing. Goodman's gifting 1. Thank you guys so much. Solid as a rock, Mr. Weatherman says the judge has a jugular vein dissension. He needs to get it checked out. I'm not a doctor, but if he sees this, maybe he will. And Venus Blue donated the price of her hoodie to the Karen Reed defense. Oh, Venus Blue won one of the raffles the other night where we didn't auction them off. It was a free raffle, and I raffled off some merch, and it was fun. Maybe we'll do that again if we have time.
Now, the rules that I explained are very important. I'm going to keep reminding you of them and ask you if you've been able to comply with them. If anything happens that seems to be inconsistent with these rules, please do not discuss it with your fellow jurors. Instead, let a court officer know, and I will speak with you privately. Now, I know that you will try this case according to the oath that you just took as jurors. When you took that oath, you promised that you would well and truly try the issues between the Commonwealth and the defendant according to the evidence and the law. If you follow that oath and approach this case with an open mind and make your decisions fairly and without prejudice or bias or sympathy for anyone, then you will arrive at a fair and a just verdict. Okay, thank you, jurors. It's now time for opening statements, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Beatty.
Once again, all
Thank you, Your
notes
Honor.
All notes about this case, if you're not familiar with it, are in the show notes below. You are free to read them at any time. You just need to close out your chat if you're on your phone. And also, I will allow it. This judge reminds me of Stanley Tucci. This is Judge Mark Hallal. This is in the big courtroom in Norfolk Superior Court, where we used to see the Karen Reed pretrial stuff. And here we go with openings.
Kurt, I am sorry, brother, but she is a vindictive devil. I am really sorry, brother, but she manipulated us all. Love you, Harry. That's the text message that Kurt Pfannenstiel received when he woke up in the early morning hours of Friday, May 15th, 2020. Immediately distressed, Kurt contacted another friend of Katie and Harry, the defendant goes by Harry, as well as Ingolf, and shared the text message with her. Vanessa Pettigrew was also concerned, so she drove to Katie's home at 29 Valley Road in Dover to look for Katie. She called, she texted, no Katie. Vanessa knew that there was a court order that prohibited Dr. Tuerk from living at 29 Valley Road, and so then he was staying in a hotel. So she found the hotel in Dedham, and she drove there. She found the two cars that the defendant and Katie shared parked outside. No Katie. She contacted family. She contacted friends. And I expect you'll hear that Stephen Rocca, who is Katie's ex-husband and the father of her 3 children, contacted the hotel. The hotel called the Dedham police and asked them to do a well-being check. And when the Dedham police responded to the hotel, no Katie, but they found the defendant totally unresponsive, passed out in his bed. He had scratches on his body. There was knives. There was a liquor bottle. And he was transported to Norwood Hospital, where he remained unresponsive for many hours. So family and friends continued to search. Law enforcement searched in Dedham, Dover, Medfield. Her phone was pinged, and it covered a wide area. So law enforcement was searching in the woods with dogs. No Katie. There was concern that she could be injured in those woods. All day Friday, no Katie. On Saturday, the police learned that Dr. Tuerk had woken up, and they wanted to speak with him. You will hear from personnel at Norwood Hospital and from the police about the procedures that needed to be followed, in part because of COVID, because this was during the height of the pandemic, and things were more complicated. So it wasn't until after 5 o'clock on Saturday that the police were able to meet with Dr. Tuerk. And I expect that you will hear about the meeting that they had. That interview was recorded. It was an audio recording. I want to tell you that it is a little bit challenging to hear because in part, everyone was wearing masks. But
Did you hear that? They recorded the defendant's statement, even though it was in the hospital and even though it was during the C word panty. Interesting. They know how to record. They know how to do an investigation and harken back. This was 2020.
we will have a transcript that will help you, and you will be able to listen to the interview. It's about 3 hours. And I expect that you will hear that Trooper Jeffrey Kutkowski and Detective Deborah Gonski from the Dedham Police met with Dr. Tuerk in the family waiting room at Norwood Hospital. That he agreed to speak with them, he was provided with his Miranda warnings. The interview was hours, but the police were polite, they were respectful, there was no yelling, and they gave him plenty of time to talk. And in the beginning of that interview, the defendant said he didn't know what happened. He didn't know where Katie went. And the police said, we're concerned, we need to find her. We think she might be in the woods. What can you tell us? And eventually, as they talked more, he told them about what happened, about what he did, about the circumstances at 29 Valley Road. He explained that he and Katie had been having some marital problems and that they had separated. He told the police that she needlessly got a restraining order that meant that he had to leave 29 Valley Road. And so he bounced around and he was having a hard time finding a place to stay, that he ended up in Florida. But that he and Katie had agreed to reconcile. He came back from Florida and they were going to work things out. And it was supposed to be a clean slate, nothing from the past. And on Thursday, they had a nice day at 29 Valley Road. They had a nice dinner. All three kids were home. They played a game. And then after dinner, after some drinking, there was an argument. And Katie wouldn't let it go. She wouldn't let the past go, like she had agreed. And so he put his hands around her neck. And just as the police were going to ask what happened after he put his hands around her neck, Dr. Tuerk asked for a break. And I expect you will hear that Trooper Krakowski will say, yep, that's not a problem. We can do that. And so they took almost a 45-minute break. And when Dr. Tuerk came back, it was different. His tone was different, more resolute, and he almost immediately provided a lot of information. Something else had changed. Detective Gonski had left the room, and Detective Richard Porro was in the room. And Dr. Tuerk told the two male police officers that he strangled his wife, that he knew he killed her, that he panicked after he knew she was dead, and he carried her body out of the house. And the police said, we need to know where she is. We can't leave her out there. And so he told the police directions for how to find her. In the course of this trial, you will hear a lot of information and evidence about the investigation that was conducted before Dr. Tuerk told the police that he strangled his wife and after. You will hear from the police who followed the directions, who went to the pond at 1 Francis Street in the night, in the dark, and who recovered Katie McLean's body from that swampy water. Dressed only in leggings, covered in dirt and debris. You will hear about her shirt recovered on a branch outside the pond. You will hear about 2 large rocks recovered from inside her pants. You will have a chance to see how heavy they are. The rocks that were meant to hide her, to cover up what he had done. And in the course of this trial, you will hear from the medical examiner who examined Katie McLean's body, who conducted an autopsy, and about her findings. of strangulation, of head injury, and from a DNA analyst about the DNA that was found under Katie's fingernails. And in the course of this trial, you will also hear evidence about the defendant's anger towards Katie McLean. Evidence of anger that will prove that he is guilty of first-degree murder. And at the end of this trial, we will return and we will ask you to consider all of the evidence and the law and find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you weren't with me for the at least 4 or 5 shows that we did on the pretrial for this case, Tuerk, he allegedly strangled her. He admitted to it. And then he put rocks in her yoga pants when he threw her in the pond behind the abandoned house, which was for sale, which he actually had been looking to rent prior to him taking her life. And there's that.
Thank you, Ms. Katie. Mr. Reddington?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, yes, this is Kevin Reddington. He was the attorney for Jennifer McCabe during the Karen Reed pretrial, and when they wanted the when they filed the Rule 17 motion to get her phones. See what he's got to say as far as what he's going to use as a defense, because the plea is not guilty despite the confession. Here we go.
Judge, apologize.
A little tripod. Maybe he's going to, I don't know what he's going to show. But at least the audio is good, although it's right in my ear.
Jurors, a couple of things that you have to understand, and His Honor is the umpire of the case. He calls the balls, he calls the strikes, he allows objections, excludes things, allows things. What I say is not evidence, what the DAs say is not evidence. What's evidence are what you people determine the facts of this case to be, consistent with your life experience, which is obviously very important. Because as a juror, you bring to this trial your life experience dealing with your friends, dealing with work, inferences that you can draw from evidence that you determine to be the facts. And as jurors, coming from all walks of life, you bring together that life experience and the ability to discuss, once the case is over, the evidence that has been presented, to determine whether or not the government has proven a case beyond a reasonable doubt, as His Honor instructed you what that definition of beyond a reasonable doubt means. And the high burden that is set on the government to say to a jury, this is not close, this is not more probable than not, this is not more likely than, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And the only one that determines who is going to get charged with a crime in our society is the government. And when the government determines that they're going to charge somebody with a crime, they don't call you up and say, hey, we're thinking we're going to charge you with a crime. Do you have any input on that determination? They arrest you and they determine, we're going to charge the person, I suggest to you, that the highest crime that is possible that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In this case, first-degree murder. At the end of the trial, His Honor will tell you what the law is, and he'll explain to you that there are 2 theories, I suspect, of murder in the first degree: premeditated, malice aforethought, cruelty, and atrocity. He'll tell you about the factors that one can consider to determine whether or not an individual has killed another human being with cruelty and atrocity with the intent to kill and taking pleasure in the death of that person. His Honor will tell you about what's called second-degree murder. His Honor may tell you about what's called voluntary manslaughter, perhaps maybe even involuntary manslaughter. That depends on the evidence that goes in to this trial, and that's entirely up to the judge. And giving you the law is entirely up to the judge, not me. At the end of the case, you're going to be able to have his instructions, and then you take the facts that you determine to exist, and you match it up to the law, and you make a decision as to whether or not the government, not the defendant, the government has proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and if so, to what degree? Now, how do you do that? Well, you come in here, you may say, I'm not really capable of determining credibility. Well, yeah, you do it every day. And you bring that life experience into the jury room. And you factor that in when you weigh the testimony of a witness. And you notice the witness stand is right here, it's right next to you. And the reason it's right next to you is so that you as a jury are able to observe the demeanor of the witness, consider whether or not the witness, to your determination, has a dog in the fight, as they say. Are they gilding the lily? Are they adding anything? Are they trying to portray something because they have a reason to want to portray something? That's all up to you. Credibility determinations are left to the jury. So what do we have here? You have a man who's on trial for murder. Harry Tuerk, and by the way, he's a doctor, he was a doctor, he is a doctor. He never liked to go by the term doctor. He was always Harry. You're gonna hear evidence that he was always Harry, that he was a gentleman who was a urologist, dealt with kidneys, dealt with prostate, and was a surgeon. You're gonna hear evidence that Harry was born in East Germany. And as a kid, he grew up in East Germany. Went to the East German schools. When he graduated from high school, he went into the East German Air Force. Served in the East German Air Force for a number of years, got out, went to med school after he graduated from college. Became an accomplished physician, an accomplished surgeon. The wall came down, he was able to leave East Germany, and he, like a bat out of hell, got out of East Germany and came over to the United States. When he came over to the United States, at the age of 42, he learned English. Didn't know English. You'll hear him testify. He's going to testify in this case. Sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But he knows English, and he speaks very, very good English.
Wait, he's going to testify? Hold on a second. I was distracted by somebody telling me that Matt Kelch testified in the Aaron Hernandez trial. That's very interesting, Ashley. Very interesting. Okay, hang on. He's going to testify in this case. This is going to be great. I already like Kevin Reddington. You know, it's not an unpopular opinion, Kate. A lot of people say that they've met Kevin Reddington, and he is a really nice guy. And listen, he said very nice things about me in open court several times. So I'm going to reserve my opinion of him. But so far, I think he's very engaging. I like his style. And his client may be guilty of sin, but it's his job to try and get him a lesser charge. That's what I think he's going for here, a manslaughter charge. So it's interesting that he's going to testify. I'm here for it. Apparently, there's only a half day of court today. There's only going to be half days of court until deliberations. So that's interesting.
He learned English. Didn't know English. You'll hear him testify. He's going to testify in this case. Sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But he knows English, and he speaks very, very good English, self-taught. In the United States, he became not just an accomplished surgeon, but he was one of, if not the best, as far as reputation, worldwide for robotic prostate surgery. Those hands saved hundreds of lives and took one. And he knows it every day. He wakes up, you'll hear evidence that he thinks of Katie. Nobody's happy with something like that. You live with it. But as human beings, in His Honor, I suspect will instruct you that you look to the circumstances that surround the taking of a life. What was involved? What happened? Like if somebody's acting to protect themselves, or if somebody's acting out of hot blood, heat of passion, or if it's an accident even on certain cases. So when Harry comes over here to the United States, and he ended up meeting Katie McLean, on Bumble, one of those websites. Nothing good ever comes from Bumble or Twitter or whatever those things are that you go on, your dating websites. And
Wait a second.
nothing wrong with that.
Hold
You meet
on.
people.
Reddington, Kev. Twitter is not a dating website. Some people think LinkedIn is a website based on some of the direct messages that I get. But he says nothing good happens from those dating websites like Bumble or Twitter. Hold on a second. I call it Fumble because it's always a miss. Hold on.
One of those websites. Nothing good ever comes from Bumble or Twitter or whatever those things are that you go on, your dating websites. And nothing wrong with that. You meet people. Hopefully you meet the right one, maybe, or you have fun. So you're going to hear evidence that both Katie and Harry went on this dating website. He's living by himself. He's living life large. She's been married twice before. No judgment there. He was married twice before. So now he's living in Dover. And as he's living in Dover, and by the way, you're going to see a timeline. And here's the timeline that I think is somewhat relevant.
Wait, what?
You're going to see
You mean Judge Hallal in Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham is going to let the defense attorney use chalks in his opening? What? I'm blown up. My head has already popped off this morning. Good morning, everyone. Get your coffee. Get your coffee. It's only going to be a half day of court, so we're going to be able to do the whole thing.
In November of 17, Harry and Kathleen meet online. Like most of us, they date, they have fun, they end up feeling that they have feelings for each other. March 18. 4 months later, she moves into his house. His house. You heard the government indicate her house. Well, it's her house now. It was her house, and you'll hear evidence of that. So the house was in Dover, Massachusetts. You're going to hear evidence that Harry had occasion to work on that house. It was a very nice house. There's the house in Dover.
It's a really nice house. We
There's a
looked at it
photograph
too.
of the backyard that he worked on, the pool, the cabana, the waterfall, outside TV. You're going to see evidence of the interior of the house. Beautiful home, downstairs, huge exercise gym, huge movie theater with the movie you can watch, office space. Because in March of 18, Kathleen McLean and her 3 children, with dad, Steve Roca, her 3 children moved into the house, and they're living together. He's working, he's going to Boston. And as I say, he didn't like to be Dr. Tuerk. He didn't like to be referred to in any type of appellations. What he preferred was his lifestyle, which involved his Harley Davidson ×2. He was lucky enough to have 2 Harleys.
The 2
And
Hollies.
what he used to do is he used to go and do his surgery, and he never was one to want to wear, the guard with the round thing on the head and all that. He hated that stuff. He wasn't Dr. Tuerk, he was Harry. Everybody knew him. Everybody loved him. He would walk into work, and that was his attire. Harley Davidson get it underneath his surgical, he'd have a Harley Davidson shirt. He became of such repute for St. Elizabeth. They were owned by that medical corporation. I forget, they own all the hospitals that they crashed. But in any event, he was the chief of urology. And he was such a star for them that there were billboards over the expressway in Boston. This is the guy living by himself. There was 2 motorcycles, this beautiful house. Goes into Kathleen McLean. In December of 19, now we're talking March of 18 to December of 19, they get married. Drunk. He had a exposition that he had to do in Las Vegas. So they went to Las Vegas. He took her. They had a good time. Well, he's in Las Vegas and they were both intoxicated. They ended up going through the fast lane, the drive-through Reddington, and ended up being able, this is not them, this is an ad, but to sit inside the pink Elvis Cadillac. The drive-through in December 19. January of 20. January of 20. Harry meets with a divorce lawyer. A woman here from Denver. Realistic. What's a divorce? Doesn't want to be with Kathleen McLean after the 5 months or so. Doesn't want to be married. She sends him an email. She says at the end of the month, thank you for the retainer, the money that he paid her, to divorce Kathleen McLean. You can hear evidence that Kathleen McLean constantly went on his cell phone, constantly looking for whether or not he's on Bumble and Jumble or whatever it is, or whether or not he's flirting, or whether or not he's sexting, or whether or not he's having affairs.
Did he just say jumble, bumble, or fumble? Hold on. Did he just say jumble, bumble, or fumble? Because he may be listening to me in his ear. I know he listens to me because he's mentioned me in open court before as being a credible source on the YouTubes. A credible source who is not salacious. Melanie Little. I was on the Chiron. Of Court TV. We looked at it one day. It was crazy. Want to hear that again? Bumble, fumble, or
Constantly looking for whether or not he's on Bumble and Jumble or whatever it is, or whether or not he's flirting, or whether or not he's sexting, or whether or not he's having affairs, whether or not he's cheating. There's a huge portion of them. 2 days after, the letter was written by the attorney confirming the divorce retainer had been received and there was going to be a divorce. She went to court, she got a restraining order against him. Threw him out of his own home, ordered by the court because he got a restraining order. Then she filed for divorce. So now at this point, he's in a situation where he's out. Where's he going to go? He calls a friend, Charlie Lax. Charlie's a nice guy, lets him stay at his house for a period of time, but how long are you going to be able to do that? So Charlie has him leave. You're going to hear evidence that after he left Charlie Lax's house, he ended up going, his counsel kind of blithely says, well, he went off to Florida. He didn't just go off to Florida. He had nowhere to live, literally. He ended up almost homeless. The time came to remember that horrific time when the pandemic struck all of us. It was an international event. He was in Germany prior to that because he had a job. His life was changing. He was going to Germany. He was going to be a physician in Germany. He already had a job with a university. His life was on a much better track. You're going to hear evidence of his discussion about, well, you know, the Roca kids, they liked Dover, they liked the schools, they liked the programs. Katie didn't want to move the kids. He didn't care. Fine. Sell the house in June. When the kids are done in school, he didn't care. He was out of there. She knew it. As the pandemic got worse, at his age, being a physician, obviously, all of us, I suppose, at that point were concerned. He was worried about dying. Not an unusual thing that he was worried about, the height of that pandemic and the fear that took him by overwhelming emotion. He ended up consulting his doctor and medication, and again, had nowhere to go. We're not going to do it. We'll say to a friend, can I stay with you? And they'd be like, dude, I'm sorry. No, but this is stuff going on. You're going to hear evidence from one of the government's witnesses who was a friend for a long time of Katie McLean, in 2015, I believe. Vanessa Pettigrew. Talked to her every day. There were 12,000 pages of texts that they sent back and forth to each other every day. talking about what's going on in their life, talking about, whether or not what type of fingernail polish, what type of shoes, what type of dresses. Is this trashy? Does this look good? I think it looks nice. And by the way, let's go to dinner. We're going to drink. Are you drunk? Are you okay? How's your alcohol problem? On and on and on. Meanwhile, he's reaching out to his best friend, Kurt Fanenstein, German guy. He reaches out to Kurt, and I stay with you. You're going to see, because he texted a text that he received from Harry to Vanessa Pettigrew. So you've got Kate McLean, the two planets rolling around, Kurt and Vanessa. So Harry reaches out to Kurt and says, please, can I stay with you? I need safety. I have to stay somewhere to be safe. Kurt says, no, I don't think so. I can't do that. But he sent that to Vanessa, and the two of them said, it's too bad. He had a lawyer, good lawyer, real good guy. John Hoffman was representing him. John was dealing with her lawyer. And John would send, you'll see the emails, he'd send letters in the course of the negotiations. Can he please stay in the basement? It's his house. Can he stay in the basement? Put a lock on the door. And you'll see text between Kate McLean and Vanessa about Harry wants to stay in the basement, LOL. Harry wants to stay in the basement. He's not her house. But he now has to find a place to stay. Stays in Boston, one little bedroom with a friend. The friend, board of trustees, you hear evidence, wanted him out because of the pandemic. He went to Florida. In Florida, he stayed in a rusty, nasty trailer that a friend Bob Ian let him stay in until Bob sold the trailer. In the interim, there were negotiations about reconciliation. And the negotiations basically were pretty simple. Kate McLean, who I submit you're going to hear, had a little house in Sudbury with a flooded basement and a lot of problems to it, but a $400,000 house that was underwater, that was being foreclosed on, that ultimately gets sold pre-foreclosure. Now she's living in that house in Dover. So she wanted on the deed. She wanted on the deed, and she wanted a post-up. She wanted him to sign something that would give her half ownership in the property. And that's where David Keighton comes in. David Keighton, you'll hear from Zoom, was an attorney and a friend of Kate McLean's, and he talked every day, as many of her friends want to do, would talk sexting to her. At one point, getting somewhat descriptive about various sex acts and talking about the property. And he prepares the deed and she records the deed. He records the deed. And she says, by the way, if he dies, do I get everything?
Well, that's an interesting twist. In all of our pretrial stuff, we didn't come across any of these text messages that apparently Katie McLean, RIP, he wouldn't be able to say this in his opening, remember, if he didn't have receipts on this, that she was perhaps sexting with another man and showing her wanting to get the house in the event that he dies. And remember, if you were with me during the pretrial stuff that we did, they got married in Vegas in December of 2019. He consulted with a divorce lawyer in January of 2020. Then there was a bit of reconciliation. They signed a post-nup, which for those of you who don't know, post-nup is a thing. You can enter into an agreement after the marriage that is similar to a prenup. The only difference is it's signed after you're already married. And in that post-nup, it will set forth what will happen in the event of a divorce. He's saying, Reddington is saying she wanted to be on the deed. I think the prosecutor is going to say that he wanted to put her on the deed as, a sign of his willingness to reconcile with her. That will be a bone of contention that the jury's going to have to decide. But in any event, he did put her on the deed to this house in Dover, and it's beautiful. We looked at it. You can look it up on Zillow yourself. It's 29 Valley Road in Dover. Patrick is here, and his uncle, Stephen Rocca, and Patrick, please tell me if I'm pronouncing Rocca, because he said Roca, is Katie's first ex-husband and father of her 3 children. It is Patrick's uncle. He's going to be doing her character witness testimony. I saw him on the witness list. And then Patrick says, Stephen is my mom's youngest brother. Long bumpy history with my family and Katie. Stephen called for a well-being check for Harry when the cops found him. Yes, we went over that in our pretrial stuff. And my sympathies go out to you and to Katie and Stephen's children. They have 3 children together. And this is very, very tragic for your whole entire family. So my thoughts and prayers are with you during this very, very difficult time. Thanks for tuning in.
So as time goes by, in the interest of reconciliation, he signs a deed. Signs it, puts her on the property. She owns half that property. Look at the date. 29th of April, 2020. Signed a post-op agreement, gave her $100,000, paying the lawyer's fees. You're going to see text messages between Vanessa, his best friend Kurt. You're going to see text messages with Kurt. And while Kurt was talking to him about trying to mediate between Katie McLean and Harry and trying to get things to work out, that he was sexting her, and she's responding. Ultimately, he's sending her what's referred to in the vernacular as dick pics, and she's sending him pictures of her breasts while she's in a bathtub. And this guy's going to be right up here on that witness stand. Can't wait. That's his best friend, Kurt.
Can't wait. Wait, she's sending booby pictures to his best friend, Kurt? Okay, we didn't know about any of this stuff either. And he's going to be right up on the witness stand, and he just smashed the witness stand. But I want to see that witness stand because remember, Karen Reed's attorneys wanted out of this courtroom because they said that half of the jury would be looking at the back of the witnesses' heads. And somebody said it looked like they put up a temporary or portable witness stand. Maybe they moved it. Maybe now Karen Reed's team can move back into this courtroom when this trial is done. I don't know. Because when we saw the order, this trial, the Tuerk trial, was supposed to move into the small courtroom. So this is interesting. Let me take it back a sec.
And she's sending him pictures of her breasts while she's in a bathtub. And this guy's going to be right up here on that witness stand. Can't wait. That's his best friend, Kurt.
Can't wait. Proctor is involved in this investigation. Did he look through Katie's phone for nudes? I want to know. This was in 2020. Commonwealth says they're not calling Proctor, but the defense can.
So as time goes by, Harry now comes back to Massachusetts, has nerve problems in his leg and needs help. Roca, by the way, was presiding on rder with Katie, ends up together, the two of them, pick up Harry, bring him to Dedham, stays in a hotel. While he's in the hotel, Katie is with him getting water, food, things of that nature. Has a restraining order. It says, don't worry about the restraining order. Come on back home, because he signed the deed. Come on back home, we're going to be a family again. She files documents with an attorney. You're going to hear from Mike Thaler, who's an attorney here in Dedham, finally dismissing restraining orders. Life is good. Harry's going to come back home. They have that nice night that the DA was talking about. They're playing a board game with the kids. They're drinking. They're having martinis. Then they have whiskey. Then they have an argument. Then they go upstairs to the bedroom. That's where they go upstairs, and the DA says that he, with his anger, decided that he was going to murder her. Well, that's a good life choice, huh? No, what actually happened, and you'll see the evidence is pretty clear, that what happens is they're in the bedroom, and they're arguing. And she's talking about the other men. She's got hundreds of guys after her on these websites. Do you think I really love you? Do you think I really love you? I'm calling the police tomorrow. You're getting out of here. They got in the course of an argument. She had a rocks glass in her hand. She had her cell phone in the other hand. He got on his knees. He said, Katie, please don't. She smashed the rocks glass off his head, the right side of his head, not the left side like the police think. At that point, with one hand, the size of that hand, the strength of that hand, he grabbed her, sat behind her. she died. You're going to hear evidence from Dr. Lapasada, pathologist from Rhode Island. Dr. Lapasada will tell you that a lot of what appears to be in any of these pictures that His Honor asked you about, can you handle looking at these pictures that are not pleasant? There's twigs and leaves and stuff on the pond. There's what appears to be bluish skin on the face. A lot of that is from lying face down in the pond, in the pooling of blood, post-mortem. You're going to.
Interesting. He's prepping the jury for the horrific pictures that they're going to see. So now they already know, they already have it in their mind. They're not going to be shocked when they see the photos post-mortem. He's also snuck in there that the police already got something wrong because he was actually smashed in the right side of his head with the rocks glass, not the left side like the police think. Interesting. Because Proctor is going to come into play. And the argument, I believe, is going to be Proctor does everything wrong. He has already said that the defendant is going to testify. Dr. Tuerk is going to testify. So we're going to get to hear from him. Commonwealth says they're not calling Proctor, but the defense might. It's going to be interesting. It's not a matter of whether he did it or not. He's confessed. It's a matter of, was it self-defense? Was it first-degree murder or a lesser manslaughter charge?
Hear evidence that death was within seconds. He panics, doesn't know what to do. This is post-homicide.
Sorry, I'm taking that back because I want to hear what he says about grabbing her by the throat.
It's a lot of that is from lying face down in the pond, in the pooling of blood, post-mortem. You're going to hear evidence that death was within seconds. He panics, doesn't know what to do. This is post-homicide conduct. The deed is done. What's for you to determine is, can the government show you and prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this was not killing in hot blood, heat of passion, second conduct, as opposed to premeditated malice of forethought and cruelty and atrocity. Putting someone in a pond, this is called fright or flight. Bad move. Should have called 911. Nevertheless, it was a panicked move. You're going to see that when he was in the hospital, you're going to see that he was passed out. He had a 226 blood alcohol. District Attorney will talk to you about his statements to the police in the course of that questioning, almost as if, he's writing a presidential speech and has all of his wits about him. This is what he looked like when the police first went into the hospital. That's what he looked like. He was passed out. He was coming out of it. Medication, significantly intoxicated. Medical records indicating that the doctors at Norwood believed it was attempted suicide by alcohol poisoning. In the course of talking to the police, and you're going to hear the video, you're going to see, I submit to you, that he was confused with a lot of questions, but nevertheless was trying to be a gentleman, was trying to be cooperative. Police officers noticed his wrist. He tried to kill himself in a state of despondency. Total misery. That, members of the jury, is the evidence that will be presented to you, and ultimately at the end of the case, it's up to you to determine whether or not the government has proven this case, to what degree, if any, beyond a reasonable doubt. And you heard the magistrate, Margaret, indicate to you that you as a jury pass between the defendant. Even though we call people that are charged with a crime a defendant, the person, as His Honor said, doesn't have to defend against anything. Government's burden of proof, but nevertheless, you as a jury pass between the defendant and the Commonwealth, the DA's office, the police, crime labs, all the rest of it. You pass between the government and the defendant, who has placed himself on his country, which country you are. And that she then went on and said, and you are charged with hearing the evidence on your oath that you took as jurors. You know, we're confident and appreciate it because it is a service. When jurors come and you take time out of your lives, knowing that that protects all of us, that we have a right to go before a jury of our peers to determine whether or not the government has proven a case beyond a reasonable doubt. At the end of the case, you get a chance to do a closing argument. Again, what I say is not evidence. What the DA says is not evidence. What's evidence is what you hear from here, photographs, exhibits, things of that nature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I thought that was well done. Notice how many chalks he was allowed to use during his opening. I don't know if Judge Cannoni has ruled on whether or not they can use chalks in their opening yet, but she was very strict about the use of chalks, which is what they call exhibits, or we would call trial exhibits in New York. They call chalks for some unknown reason, because I think it goes back to the days of actual chalkboards. And I thought he was good. It's going to be interesting.
We're going to pass out the notebooks and pens at this time. I'm just going to see counsel at sidebar, please.
Sidebar. Thank you, Wendy Sue, for your super sticker. Thank you, Marin, who said your merch officially landed in England, 100% ready for next week. Very good quality t-shirts. That's awesome. Thank you, Ms. Buckeye, for becoming a new member. Appreciate you. Kitty Cat worked with Dr. Tuerk at the Leahy Clinic. So very sad. And look, he's walking up to sidebar. He's allowed to go to the sidebars. He apparently is not in shackles or any sort of handcuffs or restraints. Karen Reed has made a motion to be able to have headphones at the defense table so that she can listen to the sidebars. And the judge has yet to rule on that. Libra in Seattle, welcome. Patrick says, we went over this before. Patrick is the nephew of Stephen Rocca, who is the first ex-husband of Katie McLean and the father of her 3 children. Random Thought says, wow, what a difference in sound systems in the courtroom. Turned it down a bit. Echo. Yeah, crazy, right? I know. Imagine that. I have no idea what this name is, but thank you so much for your 10. Is this guy fighting for innocence, or is this a trial for life or death? Well, there's no death penalty in Massachusetts. So he's fighting for the difference between first-degree murder, which would be life in prison, or a lesser manslaughter charge. And as he said in his opening, it's going to be up to the judge at the close of the evidence to determine what's going to go on that verdict sheet and what evidence came in and whether it would be proper to charge the jury with something like involuntary manslaughter, which does not need premeditation. And so that's what they're going for. That's their strategy. I think we can fast forward a little bit because we're a little bit behind. Get past this sidebar. Let's see who the first witness is. Madam Court Reporter is here. We have found her. She wasn't missing. She was in the Tuerk jury selection room during impanelment. And now she's in the courtroom. I have sound on, but I can't hear who they just called to the stand. Hold on. Hello, Law and Crime. Could you please put on your sound? That'd be great.
One sound is there that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Good morning. Slide.
Thank you.
There you go.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
May.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Could you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Vanessa Irene Pettigrew.
Could you please, oh, I'm sorry.
TTIGREW.
What is your date of birth?
7/15/1983.
Do you work?
I do.
What do you do for work?
I'm a quality improvement specialist.
What does that entail?
I do quality improvement projects for hospitals, for community health centers, and for community members.
Where do you live?
I live in Wellesley, Massachusetts.
Are you familiar with Kathleen McLean?
Yes, I am.
Did she also go by Katie?
Yes.
When did you meet Katie?
I met Katie in 2015, and prior to that, I had met her on an informal basis.
How did you meet her in 2015?
I became a client of hers. I was referred to her from a friend.
So when you say a client, what do you mean?
She's a Reiki practitioner.
Could you please explain to us what a Reiki practitioner is?
Yes, I'm actually also a Reiki practitioner, and I studied 2 other different modalities as well. And it's an energy therapy that helps people with wellness. It helps them with calming and overall sense of great well-being.
Reiki has entered the chat. Reiki, R-E-I-K-I. If you don't know what it is, there's Google to help you. But she just explained it. Interesting. One Reiki healer needed another Reiki healer as a client. I guess you can't do Reiki to yourself. Kind of like you can't really give yourself a massage. Okay.
It's a modality that has been proven in studies to show to be effective in PubMed, and it's readily researchable now.
So when you met Katie in 2015, she was practicing Reiki?
Yes, she was.
Where was she doing that?
She was doing that in her practice in Marlborough, her office.
Did Katie have any children when you met her?
Yes, Katie has 3 children.
So I guess I should back up a little bit. You met Katie when you were a client of hers while she was doing Reiki.
Yes.
Did your relationship continue outside of Reiki?
Yes, I actually had maybe 1 or 2 sessions with her, and then I felt comfortable from there on taking things on my own, and we became really good friends and actually sort of an apprentice at one point. So we had a very close relationship.
Okay. And you said when you met Katie, she had 3 children?
Yes.
Was she married at the time that you met her?
Yes, she was married at the time I met her.
Who was she married to?
She was married to Chris Foley.
Is Chris Foley the father of her children?
No.
Who is?
That is Stephen Rocca.
And where was she living when she was married to Chris Foley?
She was living in Sudbury.
Did her children live with her?
Yes, they did.
At some point, did she divorce Chris Foley?
Yes, she did.
Where did she live after that?
She lived in Sudbury in her own home.
Who did she live with?
She lived with her 3 children.
And are you familiar with Ingolf Tuerk?
Yes, I am.
How did you meet him?
I met Harry through Katie around November.
So you said Harry. Is that how you knew him?
Yes, his nickname was Harry.
Okay. And you said that you met Harry through Katie, is that right?
That's right.
Had you been friends with Katie when she met the Mr. Tuerk?
Can you repeat that?
So you had been friends with Katie when she met the Mr. Tuerk, is that right?
I was friends with Katie much prior to meeting Mr. Tuerk, that's right.
How did they meet, if you know?
They met through online dating.
And do you see Mr. Tuerk in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify him by an article of clothing?
Yes, he's wearing a blue tie.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect identification?
Yes.
Yeah. How often did you communicate with Katie during your friendship with her?
Katie and I talked almost every day by text and by phone.
How often would you see her physically?
We got to be pretty close. We would see each other on weekends pretty often.
How much time did you spend with Katie and the defendant when they were together?
The same amount of time. It was nice. We watched football games together. We had really great cookouts and times together as friends.
How often do you think that you spent time with the two of them together?
At least a couple times a month.
Would you speak with the defendant separately from Katie?
I would, yes.
How often would you say?
Less. Our relationship was a little bit different. Katie and I were very close on multiple different ways. Harry and I became colleagues, and so we would talk mostly about work.
So can we talk a little bit about that? How did you and Harry become colleagues?
I applied to St. Elizabeth Medical Center as a surgical technologist, and I had a coworker that already worked there. Her name was Patricia McNamee, and she was the VP of perioperative services that I worked prior with her at Beth Israel. And so I applied there. I let Harry know I applied, and that's how the position started.
Why did you let Harry know when you applied to St. Elizabeth's?
Harry was a surgeon there.
And do you know in what field?
Yes, he was the chief of urology.
When did you?
The surgery department.
Oh, thank you. When did you get your job at St. Elizabeth's?
It was around 2018 that I recall.
Would you see Harry during your work shifts?
I saw him almost daily, if not face-to-face. I saw him working. He worked almost 4 days a week in surgery. And I was in the OR with him on occasion.
About how many times were you in the OR with him?
Off the top of my head, at least 20, if not more.
And how was the defendant referred to while he was at work?
Most people called him Harry or Dr. Tuerk.
You stated that Katie was living in Sudbury after she had divorced Chris Foley. Is that right?
That's right.
Was she living there when she met the defendant?
Yes, she was. She had a lovely house in Sudbury.
At some point, did her living situation change?
Yes, she decided to move in with Ingolf Tuerk.
Where was that?
In Dover, Massachusetts, on 26 Valley Road.
You said 26 Valley Road?
29 Valley Road. Sorry,
Thank you.
excuse me.
And who was living in the house at that time when Katie moved in?
When Katie moved in, Harry had his 2 children, and also Katie's children moved in as well.
Were the defendant's children living in the house full-time?
Part-time. Their mother lived in Dover as well.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that?
The children that Harry had,
So,
mother lived in Dover as well.
so there was shared custody between the defendant's children, is that right?
Yes.
When Katie moved into the defendant's home at 29 Valley Road, what was the status of their relationship? Were they married?
When they moved in?
Yes.
They were dating with the idea of getting engaged.
Did they get married?
Yes, they did.
When was that?
It was in December.
Were you at the wedding?
I was not. It was in Vegas.
How did that come about, if you know?
They had been talking about getting married for a long time in their relationship, and they had talked back and forth about getting married in Vegas a number of times. So on this occasion, it was just kind of a surprise for the family and all of us that they got married in Vegas. And, you know, the kids got along really well, so it made sense at the time.
Were the kids at the wedding in Vegas, if you know?
Not that I know of.
So it was just the 2 of them that went on a vacation and ended up getting married?
Yep, private moment. Mm-hmm.
And after they got married, did they continue to live at 29 Valley Road?
They did.
Turning your attention to February 3rd of 2020, did Katie obtain a 209A restraining order against the defendant?
Yes, she did.
As a condition of that restraining order, did the defendant have to leave 29 Valley Road?
Yes, he did.
Where did he go, if you know?
He went to first a colleague, a friend, Charles Lax. He went to another place in Dover, and then he eventually, I think, went to Florida to live with Bob from steward. He had a camper in Florida that he was staying in.
How often were you communicating with Katie at that point?
Pretty much daily.
How would you communicate with her?
Mostly by text and also by phone.
What types of things would you and Katie talk about?
We would talk about her day-to-day, the weather. We would talk about COVID, because it was COVID at the time. We would talk about anything and everything, fashion, nails, literally everything that a friend would talk to a good friend about, her family, her kids. I feel like I knew the kids myself very well. She would send me videos of the kids.
Would you talk about your relationships?
Yes.
And in February 3rd, or around February of 2020, after the defendant had moved out of the house, were they taking steps towards divorce, if you know?
They were, yes.
At some point in April of 2020, did that change?
Yes, there was a change. Harry had sent an email through his lawyer to reconcile.
And was Katie considering that?
She was going back and forth. She was uncertain, but conflicted. She had to weigh the pros and cons. She was very concerned about her children having a normal, stable life. She wanted the best for her kids. That's all she wanted.
And did they move towards reconciliation, if you know?
They did.
And how did that happen?
Like I said, Harry's lawyer reached out that he wanted to reconcile, and they started the process. I believe there was a prenuptial agreement, and there were several things that they had to decide upon with each other that they would do moving forward to make it work, including having Dr. Tuerk undergo some psychiatric help and to refrain from alcohol.
Excuse me.
Sustained. Please disregard that. That last answer is strict.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. There was an objection. I think he even stated the grounds, and then she kept talking, and Reddington, excuse me. And the judge, this is the first time we've heard the judge talk, and we're already into this for, we've been on stream for an hour and a half, and we started right away. So first time we've heard the judge interrupt, and it was because of an objection. I want to hear if I can make out what Reddington says are grounds, if he says grounds. Hold on.
Decide upon with each other that they would do moving forward to make it work, including having Dr. Tuerk undergo some psychiatric help and to refrain from alcohol.
Excuse me.
Sustained. Please disregard that. That last answer is stricken. Next question, please.
Yeah, that he was undergoing some psychiatric help. I couldn't hear. I heard Kevin Reddington say something after he said objection, but I don't know what it was, so I can't say if they're allowed to state grounds quite yet.
Please.
So when they began reconciliation or talking about reconciliation, where was Katie and her children living at that time?
Katie and her children were living in Dover.
And where was the defendant living?
He was living in a hotel in Dedham.
Prior to coming to the hotel in Dedham, where was he living, if you know?
As far as I know, he was living in Florida, and he had come up from that trip by car.
Did he drive himself, if you know?
Katie helped him.
And how is that?
He had some back pain, and he felt like he couldn't do the drive alone. So she, out of the kindness of her heart, obviously wanted to help him. And she drove to meet him halfway. And I believe Mr. Rocca also went as well to help make the transition of cars.
Mr. Rocca being the children's father, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. When the defendant came back from Florida and was staying in the hotel in Dedham, was Katie seeing him?
Can you repeat that?
When the defendant came back from Florida and was staying at that Dedham hotel, was Katie seeing him at that time?
Yes, she would bring him food. It was COVID. It was very difficult to get supplies and food, and she would supply him with his dinners or something to eat.
Was him coming to Dedham just another step in reconciliation?
Yeah, it was a way to safely try things out and to, maintain the relationship.
Turning your attention to May 15th of 2020, do you remember that day?
Yes, I do.
What happened?
I received a text message from our friend Kurt.
What's Kurt's last name?
Fenesteel.
And what was the text message that?
Just a gentle reminder that please do not spell out the C blank VID word for the pandemic. It is something that YouTube does not like and will strike streams because of it. So I just deleted one comment. Please try not to use that word. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you. And also another gentle reminder that there are many friends and family of Katie McLean in the chat. So please be kind with your comments, and let's try and just keep it to the testimony and the credibility of the witnesses rather than their looks and stuff like that. We try and keep it classy that way, and I would really appreciate that as well. Thank you.
That you received?
I received a message believed to be from Harry, and he made a kind of alarming statement to Kurt, and we didn't really know exactly what it meant.
So I think I'm going to back you up just a little bit. Approximately what time was the first text message that you received from your friend Kurt?
It was around 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And what was that first text message that you received, if you can recall?
I remember the context of the message. It basically said, "Sorry, brother," and said that Katie was a devil. And she manipulated everybody.
Prior to receiving that text message, did you receive another text message from Kurt?
I'm not sure which text you'd be referring to.
Is your memory exhausted as to the text messages that you first received from Kurt on May 15th of 2020?
Yes.
Is your memory exhausted has entered the chat. Because if your memory is exhausted in Massachusetts and you say yes, then they can refresh your memory, your recollection, by showing you these text messages. And I think that's what she's going to do now.
Would it be helpful to review your text messages?
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, these have been pre-marked as exhibits. Once I show the exhibit to the witness, may I display them on the screen?
Yes, no objection,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Reddington?
No, of course not. No.
You may.
And if you could just look at exhibit 147 to yourself and read it and let me know when your memory is refreshed, please.
Okay, I understand.
Okay. And what was that first text message that you received from Kurt?
He was asking me to call him as soon as possible.
And what else did he say?
He said we might have a popcorn situation.
What did that mean to you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear it. We might have a what situation?
We might have a popcorn situation.
Okay, thank you.
Popcorn has entered the chat. For those of you who followed the pretrial with me, there was a motion in limine to keep out the word popcorn from the trial, and now you're going to hear why.
What did that mean to you?
Objection.
Objection.
Overall, she can answer it.
Popcorn was a code word if Katie needed anything from Kurt and I immediately, that we would be able to respond to her as soon as possible.
When you first got those two messages in the early morning hours of May 15th, how did you feel?
Objection.
I felt,
Okay, next question.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 147 on the screen?
I have linked the pretrial playlist below for those of you who would like to catch up. If you missed it, that's great that you want to catch up. There was an objection. It was sustained. He did not state grounds. I don't know if the judge has prohibited him from stating grounds, as Judge Cannoni has done in the Karen Reed trial, but interesting. Let's see what's going to be on the screen.
And if you could move up just a little bit.
There's a bit of a glare. Could we possibly turn the lights down a little bit?
It's not my rules, it's YouTube rules. I don't know why they do that, but Aidan Carney, I think his entire channel was taken down and stricken because he had a different view on some vaccination than others. And so I don't question it. Well, I'm just asking you please not to do it. That's all. All right, let's take a look. These are the messages. Hang on.
Is that better, Juris?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just move the screen down a little bit. Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Gilman is
And
there.
Ms. Pettigrew, are those the two?
Remember, Ms. Gilman also did the exhibits in the Karen Reed case for the Commonwealth. The first message said, please call me ASAP. And then it says, we might have a popcorn situation.
Messages that you received from Kurt on May 15th?
yes, they are.
Okay. And did you receive a third text message from him?
Yes.
And what was the third text message that you received from him?
The third text message was a copy of a text from Harry.
And what did that text message say?
That text message said, I'm sorry, brother. Katie's the devil, and she manipulated all of us.
Ms. Gilman, could you please move down to page 2? And there's a text message in green on page 2 of Exhibit 147. Is that the text that you received from Kurt that morning?
Yes.
And what does it say?
Kurt, I am sorry, brother.
If you need to refer to the exhibit in front of you, if that's easier to read, I know the screen is somewhat far away. I apologize for that.
Kurt, I am sorry, brother. But she's a vindictive devil. She played us all. I am really sorry, brother, but she manipulated us all. Love you, Harry.
After receiving that text message, what did you do?
After receiving this text message, I tried reaching out to Katie, and me and my husband, we got into the car and we tried to, the first thing we thought of was, and what I thought of was to check on the children.
And where did you go?
We went to the house at 29 Valley Road.
When you got to the house, what, if any, cars did you see there?
I didn't see any cars.
What did you do when you got to 29 Valley Road?
I rang and knocked on the front door several times. We didn't get an answer. So we got back in the car and we tried to find where Harry's hotel was.
How did you do that?
We knew it was in Dedham, and we just tried which hotel we thought it might be.
What happened while you were looking for the hotel that the defendant was staying at?
I was able to see the two cars from the home at the hotel, and I knew that that was the right location. There was a Jeep and a Mercedes parked there.
What did you do when you saw the Jeep and the Mercedes parked there?
I took a picture of both, and then I went inside, and
I'm gonna stop you there. Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 118 on the screen? If you could just move, thank you very much. And looking at Exhibit 118, could you please describe what that is?
that is the Jeep that they had.
Is that the photograph you took when you went to the hotel in the early morning hours of May 15th?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, could you please put Exhibit 117 up on the screen? Thank you. And what is depicted in this photograph?
A Mercedes.
And whose Mercedes is that?
That is also one of the family vehicles.
And was that in the parking lot in Dedham on the early morning hours of May 15th?
Yes, they were next to each other.
To your knowledge, who normally drove the Jeep?
Harry liked the Jeep, so Harry would drive the Jeep.
What about the Mercedes?
Often Katie would drive it, but they would occasionally switch up the vehicles.
When Harry was living in Florida, which car was Katie driving?
She was,
If you know. If you don't remember, that's fine.
she was mostly driving the Jeep, but I don't recall which in particular.
Thank you. So you stated that you found the hotel in Dedham but when you found the vehicles in the parking lot. Is that right?
Yes.
After you snapped those two pictures that we just saw, what did you do?
I went in, and I'd like to remind everyone that it was COVID time, so it was a little bit awkward.
When you say awkward, what do you mean?
People weren't supposed to be talking to each other, like gathering or anything like that. So it was just an awkward time for everyone. So to be like looking for someone and trying to find someone, it was just a little bit awkward. So I went up to the clerk at the front desk, and I asked if they could ring the room of Harry Tuerk.
And what happened then?
They rang the room multiple times and nobody picked up. And I was very frustrated. I couldn't reach my friend because I thought she was in there because the car was there. So then I went back to the house at 29 Valley Road, and I tried to make sure the kids were okay again for a second time. And I went to the side door, the glass door this time.
So you said that when you went to the hotel, you were sort of frustrated because you couldn't get in touch with your friend when they were ringing the room. Is that right?
That's right.
Which friend are you referring to?
Katie.
Were you trying to get in touch with her in any other way during this time period?
Yeah, phone calls, text messages. It was not like her.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It was not like her to not answer repeated texts or phone calls.
And when you say phone calls, that would be to her cell phone, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So after you left the hotel when you could not find Katie, you said you returned to 29 Valley Road, is that right?
I did.
Then what happened?
I knocked on the side door, which was glass, and that leads into the kitchen. And I saw Sam there. And
Who's Sam?
Sam is her son.
Okay. And approximately how old was Sam at the time, if you know?
I don't remember. Maybe 13 around.
Okay. And what happened when you found Sam in the kitchen?
I think I startled him. I was frantically looking for his mom at that point. And I asked him for the phone number of his dad. And I also asked him if all the kids were in the house. And he said, yes, they were upstairs.
Did you see any of the other children at that time?
I did not. They were upstairs. And my goal was to get the phone number for the dad and just make sure everybody was in the house.
So you said that you entered the house through the side door and you were in the kitchen, is that right?
Yes.
Did you go in any other rooms in the house?
I did not.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 148 on the screen? And what is depicted in Exhibit 148?
That is the house at 29 Valley Road.
Your Honor, may I approach, please?
Yes.
I'm handing you a laser pointer.
Okay.
So you have to press this button. If you could please show the jury, you stated that you originally went to the front door. If you could just show us where the front door is located at 29 Valley Road.
I don't know if it's reaching.
It will, just move
okay.
it around, thank you.
This is the front door.
And when you returned the second time after you had been to the hotel, you said that you went to the side door?
Mhm.
You can show us where that side door is.
The side door was over on this side.
And that led directly into the kitchen?
Yes.
Is it in between, is the side door in between the garage and the house?
It was in the back. It was in the back of the house. Like they had a patio and things like that in the back. And on the patio deck, there was a sliding door that was glass.
Okay, so if, Ms. Gilman, if you could place Exhibit 149. So this door that's in between the garage and the home, that's not the door that you went in?
No, it wasn't. I did look through that door, but I went to the side door to meet Sam in the kitchen.
When you went to the sliding glass door, did you have to go through a fence or a gate or anything like that?
I don't remember if there's a gate that I went through, but I had to knock on the door because that was a locked door, and Sam opened it up.
Thank you. So you stated that you spoke with Sam and you were able to get Mr. Roca's phone number, is that right?
Yes.
What did you do at that time?
I had gone home and I took a couple minutes to kind of gather myself and think about what to say to the father. And I told him that the kids were home alone. I couldn't find Katie, and I didn't know what was going on, but it would be a good idea to do a wellness check.
And at that point, did your conversation with Stephen Roca end?
I sent him the pictures of the two cars of where I thought they were, or where now I knew they were. And I had also, I think, sent the text from Kurt that made me more alarmed to think that they needed a wellness check.
And at that point, did you stay at your home after you had alerted Mr. Roca to the situation?
Yes, I did. I took a shower and then I tried to kind of like look at places where Katie might have gone if she, just needed like some time by herself where she might be.
At some point that evening of May 15th of 2020, did you go to the Dover police station?
I did.
Why did you do that?
By that time, Stephen had called me and told me that something was going on with Harry, that he was being brought out by an ambulance, and he was like, what is going on? And the Dover police had been involved, and the Dedham police had been involved at that point. And then the Dover police called us in for Kurt and I for a statement.
Did you give them anything else while you were at the Dover police station?
Yes, I gave them my phone because I thought it would help find Katie quicker.
And did you consent to an extraction of your cell phone?
I did.
Was that done to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Did you ask if you
I have
could
no further
delete
questions.
anything on your phone before you willingly gave it over, like all the text messages to your kids reminiscent of Jennifer McCabe? All right, we're getting ready for cross-examination. For those of you who suffer from misophonia, and I didn't even know it was a thing until you guys told me about it, and apparently it can be debilitating. If you can't stand the lip smacking, you may have to turn off your sound and just rely on the closed captions, because whoever's doing that into the mic is apparently going to be doing it for a very long time. Perhaps the whole entire trial. Nothing I can do about it.
Does anybody need a break, jurors, before cross-examination? Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Reddington.
Probably towards the end. Would you agree with me that you and Ms. McLean communicated on a literally daily basis from 2014 or 15 up to 2020?
Roughly daily, I mean,
And-
Yes.
and you'd agree with me that your communications on a daily basis would really pretty much consume most of the day. You talk in the morning, you talk in the afternoon, you talk late afternoon, you talk in the evening, talk in the late evening.
depend on what was going on. Obviously, we have jobs,
Right.
family matters,
And so
activities.
how many texts do you believe over that period of time? Would you agree with me that 2014 or 15 that you first made contact with Ms. McLean?
Around 2015.
And from 2015 until 2020, would you agree with me that you had almost 12,000 pages of text messages between yourself and Katie?
I can't confirm how many pages. I've never seen them printed out,
Okay.
but there was a lot of text messages,
A lot of
yes.
text messages, yeah.
Mhm.
And when the police were investigating this case in the very beginning, did they ask you to sign a document to
They
get
did.
access to your phone?
They did.
And did they seize your phone?
They did not seize my phone.
Did they look at your phone?
They did.
Did you get any text messages from yourself and Katie? Whether it's 12,000 pages worth or one, you got any text messages between the two of you on your phone?
Yes, we had text messages between us on my phone.
And going how far back?
As far as I know, they started in 2015.
So your testimony would be that you did not delete any text messages with Katie. Is that right?
I don't recall which text messages were deleted or not deleted.
Okay. You started to get involved with this investigation on the 20th of May when you called the police and indicated that you had been to the house and that you could not find Katie. Is that correct?
I didn't call the police, Mr. Rocca did, but I made a statement at the police department in Dover.
And when you went to the police department in Dover, do you recall how many times, if you remember, that you spoke to the police investigators from Dover Police Department? Once or twice? Because you gave an interview, right?
I gave an interview, yes.
All right. Do you remember the date that you gave them the interview?
It was on the date that she was missing.
Do you recall when you spoke with, was it Trooper Jeffrey Kotkowski that you spoke to? If you remember.
Does that name sound familiar? Kakowski, involved in not only the Karen Reed case, but also the Penny McGee case.
I don't remember his last name. I remember speaking to an officer
Okay,
in
so
the
you don't-
Dover
that's
PD
all right, You
department.
don't remember his last name. That's fine. And you told the police in that investigation what you knew about the relationship she had with Harry Tuerk, correct?
Yes,
Now, you knew Harry Tuerk because actually he had done surgery on your father, right?
that is completely incorrect.
He did not do surgery on your father.
No, he did not.
Oops.
They said he did surgery on your father?
No.
So when you first met Harry Tuerk, it would be through Katie McLean, Kathleen McLean?
Yes, it was through Katie McLean.
And you knew that, and she introduced you to Harry, right?
Yes,
She told you that Harry was a surgeon at St. E's, right?
that's right.
Were you working at St. E's at the time?
I was not.
You wanted, however, to work at St. E's, correct?
Yes, one of my prior colleagues was working there and Harry was working there, so
Your answer is yes, correct?
yes.
Do you recall speaking to Ms. McLean and asking whether or not she'd talk to Harry about getting you a job there?
I think it's normal for people who are getting a job to get recommendations, so yes, that's something I would
I
do.
mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not what you know, who you know, as they say, right? I mean, if you know somebody, that's fine. You can reach out and they can help you out, right?
Mhm.
And that's what he did, right? Yes? You're nodding your
Yes.
head? And he got you the job at St. E's, right? And you were a good worker,
Mhm.
yes?
Yes,
And on occasion, you even worked with him, right?
I did.
And you had occasion to observe his surgical techniques, right?
Absolutely.
And in your text messages, you actually, on one occasion, indicated that his surgery was music.
Yes, It was.
And it was fun to watch. It was interesting to watch him act as a surgeon because he did a damn good job at it, right?
Absolutely.
When you met Katie, when you first started talking with Ms. McLean, would you agree with me that one of the things that you two would talk about was her concerns that Harry was having relationships with other women online or offline, right?
That topic came up.
It came up about 1,000 times, right? Wasn't just come up once, it came up all the time, right?
I think the culture of hospitals is that there's some questions about relationships that goes on.
Okay.
Oh, so all doctors cheat? Wow. There are 12,000 pages of text messages between Vanessa, the witness, and Katie McLean, the decedent, RIP Katie. So you know that when Reddington is going at her or asking her if there are text messages back and forth where maybe Katie expressed some suspicion that he may have been cheating on her, he's got the receipts for that.
Okay. Well, I mean, she would reach out to you in your text messages. For example, do you recall in the beginning portion of your relationship would be page 1710 on the texts, that she sent you a message saying that she is text.
All right, first of all, is there a date on that, Mr. Reddington?
You have 1710 on this. August 6th.
Of what year?
2018. Beginning of their relationship.
Can you show Ms. Beatty and Ms. McLaughlin, please?
Could we approach this?
Yes, we can approach.
Bring the laptop.
She said, bring the laptop. We can fast forward through this, but notice the defendant is going to go to sidebar with them. He doesn't appear to be shackled or handcuffed, and he has been in the Norfolk County jail since 2020 when he was arrested. I'm going to fast forward to real time. The ADA's name is Lisa Beatty. Did he say McLaughlin? Is it Laura McLaughlin? Hold on. It can't be because there's no way she could be trying another case other than the Karen Reed case right now. That's too much work. Let's see. It's a long sidebar. Reddington's trying to get in a text message from August 6th of 2018 between Katie and her friend Vanessa, which was right at the beginning of their relationship. Oh, look at us on real time. Wow. Look at that. Michelle says, serious question. Layman here. How is some of her testimony allowed when a lot of it appears to be hearsay? There's been no objections, so it's coming in. Thanks, Michelle. Hannah says, hi, I've been lurking and poor since the Karen Reed persecution, but finally have some spare change to offer, and thanks for all your hard work. That is very sweet, Hannah. Very, very sweet. Your presence is my present. So never expected, always appreciated. Patrick is going to be in the courtroom on Monday. Cambat says, this is how not guilty friends act. Midnight Mike has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Midnight Mike. Always a very kind and generous contributor to the channel. This is the same court reporter as in the Karen Reed case. Madam Court Reporter is back. She's alive. We've been missing her. She hasn't been in the Karen Reed hearings as of late. Hang on one sec. What do we like better, the clock or the fan? The fan makes me nauseous. I'm going to say I like the clock. I'm going to say I like the clock. Yeah, Crafty Chris, this is the big courtroom that the jury can't see witnesses, but it looks like they may have moved the witness stand. So I'm not sure if you guys who are familiar with that that courthouse, you can tell me if it's moved, the position is moved, because I can't imagine that it's constitutional for the jury to look at the back of the witnesses' heads. Thank you very much. For those who did not watch last night, Double D Dorothy is pointing out that I did go on Nurse Kim's channel last night. We had a fun time, 2 hours, I think we were together on the Karen Reed case, and that was a lot of fun. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it later. It was a lot of fun. Zella says, the clock is nice, but I have positive feelings about the fan for the only fan joke. You're saying, no, this is not the big courtroom. The big courtroom is paneled. This is white. It looks to me like the big courtroom, but I don't know. It looks bigger than the one that Karen Reed is in. That's all I'm saying. For those of you who are just joining, welcome. If you're not familiar with this case, it is fully set forth in the show notes below. And so you'll get a little taste of who's going to be called to testify in this trial. Many of the same witnesses in the Karen Reed trial, including Proctor, although the Commonwealth says they're not going to call him, Garino, Fanning, Tully, and some others. Musafa, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure exactly what the questions were regarding to the hearsay. I'll have to go back and watch it later. Katie Mick says, come on, Melanie, she's not trying the Reed case. I know, McLaughlin, but she's sitting there. She's sitting there. She's only said a couple of words in Karen's case. Yeah, Pure Duckery, but it seems like she's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I don't know if that's Laura McLaughlin. We'll wait and see if we can ever get a look at them sitting at the Commonwealth's table. Yes, I do, Michelle. Ashley Benefield did have earphones when they went to sidebar, and that a lot of cases in Florida do that. I think Sarah Boone had them as well. It's a very common thing in a lot of other jurisdictions. So I don't know why the judge in Karen Reed's case is asking for papers, which they did file the papers. And so I don't know that she's ruled on it yet. Helsenberg points out, or Heisenberg, my eyes are straining today. Reddington's doing his job, which is to zealously defend his client, just like Karen Reed's attorneys do for her, for those that are saying he's rude, etc. Agreed. Agreed. And so he thinks maybe they dismissed the jury on a comfort break while they worked it out at sidebar. I mean, I don't know. I think, well,
For a minute before the jurors come in, please.
You were right. Well done. Estrella is a little behind, but says she liked Reddington's opening. There's Harry Hammer haircut. Kelly, right. Even he deserves a fair trial, as everyone does. It is a constitutional right to a fair trial. Right. Thank you, Tara, that I finally took you and your mod's offers to read those show notes. I'm consistent. I've never liked Jen McCabe's attorney, and he was the one questioning here. I'm not a fan of the style. You have that right. You also have that right. Yes. Ashley, the doctor is being held in custody. He's been in the Norfolk County jail since his arrest in May of 2020. This case has taken 5 years to come to trial. Nikki asked how long did it take to pick his jury. They started on Tuesday. So 2 days it took. That is it. The show notes are beneath. It's the description of this video beneath. If you are on your phone, Green Eyed Southern Girl, just close out the chat and you can read the show notes underneath the video. Yeah, it looks like Trooper Garino figured out how to find text messages in this case. Says pin it on Proctor. Kylie is impressed by the judge, and he doesn't even seem annoyed at objections, and he's not even sighing really loudly into the mic. It's hard to believe it's in the same building, right? And it's not just the Commonwealth's right to a fair trial, says Lotzi's mom. No huffing and puffing. Yep, he's been there for 5 years. I mean, he must have been in there in Norfolk County Jail when Aidan Carney was there, as is Brian Walsh. Haven't heard anything about the emergency hearing this morning. Have not heard. I've been here doing this with all of you, so I do not know. If I find out anything, I'll be sure and let you guys know. Karen's trial deserves this courtroom. See if there's a wide shot of the gallery. Let me see. Remember Sarah Boone asked if she could have juice boxes during the trial, and they said no, they wouldn't give her the snacks that she wanted.
So if we can get him on by 12:30, he'll be the next witness. If we can't, then we'll move to Mr. Fannin's but we need to talk about something before he starts to testify. But we're hopeful that we can finish this witness, then do Officer Wilcox.
That's generally what people try to do in the trial, you know?
I think that was a hot mic moment.
I don't care as long as I get out what I want to get out.
I don't care as long as I get out what I want to get out. Kevin Reddington, your mic is on. We can all hear you. The world can hear you. Kevin, there's a mute button on that mic. You might want to use it.
All rise, please. Jurors entering.
Okay, we're on real time now.
Okay, Ms. Pettigrew.
Hey, girl. Hey, welcome.
All jurors present, may be seated.
Thank you. So apparently the emergency hearing will be tomorrow at 10 with Doolin. I will be traveling, so I will not be streaming tomorrow.
All right, so jurors, I just want to give you an instruction. You're going to hear this witness testify about statements that were allegedly made to her by Katie McLean. Those statements are only offered for a limited purpose. That is, to show the state of mind of Katie McLean around the time of the alleged event and the relationship. You may only consider those statements, that is, to Ms. McLean's state of mind, only if you find that the defendant was aware of her state of mind. You may not consider the statements for the truth of what is asserted in those statements.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
are you picking up
Ms.
that
Pettigrew, I'm
instruction?
going-
So that instruction means if the messages are going to say something like, I think Harry's cheating on me or Harry is cheating on me, the jury is not to assume that it is true that Harry is cheating on her. It just goes to her state of mind that perhaps she may have been jealous that, or, you know, paranoid or suspicious of his behavior, but they're only allowed to consider that if they believe that the defendant, Dr. Harry Tuerk, was aware of her state of mind. See that? The Doolin thing tomorrow is apparently an Aidan Carney, Karen Reed hearing that has been called on an emergency basis in front of Judge Doolin. We thought it was today. It's going to be tomorrow, and hope that clears that up.
To ask you if you recall the content of these text messages in your communications with Ms. McLean. Do you recall that she indicated to you that she found in his cell phone a woman that he had an affair 14 years ago, Kate Kelly?
I remember the name Kate Kelly.
Okay, she was from New Hampshire, right? Yes?
Yes.
And do you remember that Kate McLean was very upset about the fact that she found that contact in Harry's phone? Talk to you about it. The two of you sent texts back and forth.
I remember conversations about the name Kate Kelly.
And the conversations basically were that Kate McLean was very upset about that, right?
As far as I knew, she was trying to figure out what was going on.
Right. And she told you that she found that by looking in his phone, right?
I don't recall that particular aspect of her looking in the phone.
Do you recall her further into the conversations indicating that she texted him, "I know because I have his phone"? Do you recall her telling you that?
I don't recall that specific text.
And Harry emailed an open position at St. E's along the same time for you to get that job, right? You recall that?
There was a job fair where multiple people could come.
All right, do you recall that
It
there
was a
was a
job
text?
fair.
Excuse me, do you recall sending a text to her, 1723, indicating that Harry emailed you an open position at St. E's? Email. Yes or no? Do you recall it?
I recall the job fair.
What's a job fair? Other people help?
It's where anybody can come
Right.
and
Do you have a problem with acknowledging that Harry actually emailed you an open position, information about an open position?
no, I just don't recall that specific
Okay,
email.
so that's the
I
answer.
remember the job fair that he
That's the
forwarded
answer,
me.
is you don't recall. It's easy.
Okay.
You don't recall. Do you recall that she was upset and texted you that Harry was going to lend a friend $200,000, and she was very upset about him depleting his assets?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you have text messages and oral conversations with her about how much money Harry had?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, do you recall her indicating that he, not her, was a dating site addict and he needed the rush?
Objection.
Overruled.
You got one. He was a dating site addict. And he needed the rush.
I remember both of them talking about dating sites.
Okay. And do you recall her indicating that, in her opinion, he was a dating site addict and needed the rush?
I don't remember those terms, but they did talk about the dating sites. It often comes up in new relationships, whether or not to
Okay, so,
stop the dating sites or not.
right, yeah, you've answered that.
Yeah,
Do you recall?
that's pretty common.
Okay, so let's do it this way. I ask a question, you answer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So do you recall indicating to her, I guess maybe I should work for Harry. You need a spy. Do you remember saying that to her?
Overruled.
Are you talking about a joke?
The other one that said it.
Are
You're the
you
one that
talking
said
about
it.
a joke? That was,
Do you remember saying?
You're the one that said it. You're the one that said it. Remember, this guy, Kevin Reddington, this attorney, also represented Jennifer McCabe. So that's interesting, right? Because that Jennifer McCabe was told that on the stand, I think, by Alan Jackson. What did you Google? I don't remember. Well, you're the one who Googled it. Interesting. I'm gonna show this witness some grace because her friend was murdered. So, let's consider that. Thanks.
It?
I remember a joke passed between Katie and I.
Uh-huh. And the joke was what? That you were going to be a spy for her?
I remember a joke like that, yes.
Okay. What did you mean?
It's just a joke.
Like what? I don't get the joke. What joke? What was the joke?
It's just a joke between friends.
Okay. And what was the joke?
That if you know where someone is and you are spending time with them, that you would, tell them what you saw.
Right. And she was very active on tracking websites as well, tracking his whereabouts. Isn't that right? That you knew about? Overall.
I think both of them did that.
Okay, look, the question is, were you aware of them discussing anything about tracking websites? Yes or no?
They tracked each other.
They tracked each other, okay.
Yes.
So you know that she actually recalled sending her a text saying, you gotta get off that tracking thing? She felt that it was interfering with your relationship?
I say that to parents that track their children all the time as well. There's a lot of helicopter parents out there.
So the question is, again, if you can focus, I apologize if I confused you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall any conversations about the tracking app that she was using, ruining their relationship?
As far as I know, they were both using it and people
Can you
use
just
it for their
answer the
kids.
question?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Now, do you recall that she then, the same time frame, moving up about a month or so, indicated that Dina friended him on Facebook and that he deleted the account? I went into his phone. Do you recall her saying anything like that to you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know who Dina was?
I don't remember Dina. There was only so many I could keep track of.
So many what?
So many
Oh, she slipped.
people that Harry knew.
There was
Oh.
only so many that I could keep track of. All right. Now we know they were both tracking each other. She was looking at his phone a lot. I mean, listen, he's doing his job as a defense attorney and everyone's entitled to a good one. And Big Old Dog says, yeah, but she's not helping her friend by being obviously uncooperative. Also, the smile throughout is throwing me a bit. Like if you're just, they have 12,000 pages of your text messages between you and Katie, they have them. So just answer and just move on and maybe don't smile.
How about the guys that she knew? How many guys did she know that you knew about?
Sustained.
Did you know she was on the dating websites?
Objection.
Overall.
I think most people that go on dating websites date multiple people.
Do you know she, McLean, was on dating websites?
Both of them were on dating websites, so yes.
Do you know?
Yes.
that thank you. She was on
Yes.
dating websites. And you know that she was receiving photographs of men, various stages of dress, on exercise equipment, beaches, things of that nature. You know that, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
That's the nature of online
Hey,
dating.
listen, just take a moment before you answer the question to see if
That objection was sustained and she should not have gone on. But then she went on to say that's the nature of online dating. So while the jury's going to be told to disregard that, he got his answer. She was receiving photos from guys on dating websites while she was in a relationship with Harry or may have been married to him at the time. And that's the nature of dating websites. Yeah, I don't know.
there's an objection, okay? Thank you.
So how about the dates that she went on? You remember the dentist from New Hampshire, right?
Objection, Your Honor, may we,
While they were,
Sustained.
may we approach?
Yes.
You remember the dentist from New Hampshire. They've got 12,000 pages of text messages, and some of this stuff is not going to be allowed in because they're just trying to show like bad character evidence of the victim, Katie McLean, and this is her friend. And so some stuff is going to be allowed in and some stuff is not going to be allowed in. And they're at sidebar again. Yeah, this is good. It's interesting to see how another trial operates inside the Norfolk Superior Courthouse, right? She seems to be frozen, but it's still scrolling at the bottom. So I'm a little confused. Wow. She was like a statue for a second there, right? Was it me? Thank you, Kylie. 10 a.m. with Doolin tomorrow. That is the one for Turtle Boy. And Karen, maybe, I don't know. I can't keep up with too many things when I'm trying to focus on this trial today. But Glamaseuse's quick update on the girl who killed Meredith's uncle, 90 days, bail increased to $65,000 cash, $650,000 bond, home confinement, GPS. They let her out. Scram device, surrender passport, rando. Wow, that's terrible. Thank you. Thanks for the update. That's a tragic, tragic, horrible story. And Green Eyed Southern Girl became a member. Welcome back.
I've lost all my boards. Lisa?
They're up here.
Oh, they're up there? Okay. You would agree with me from your personal knowledge that in November of 17, Harry and Kathleen McLean met online. It was November 17, right?
I believe so.
And in March of 18, Kathleen McLean and her 3 children moved into his home, right?
Yes.
You recall talking to her about her moving into Dover and using the word, it's a good score. Do you recall that?
The sarcastic comment? Yes, that
Another joke?
sounds right.
Okay, so what did you mean by it's a good score? Congratulations, move to go.
I think when people get into a good relationship that they're happy with and they feel like they finally met the right person, which is how Katie felt, that's a good score. How she felt.
She felt, okay.
Yes.
And so the good score, somehow the town of Dover and the house and everything just kind of was on the periphery of that?
I don't know. I'm from Wellesley, so I don't really judge towns. There's all kinds of people in towns.
Okay. So she moves in.
I'm from
March of
Wellesley.
18.
What does she mean by that? Is Wellesley
And-
also a rich town? Like Dover's a rich town? You guys know.
You knew in December of 19 that he had consulted with a divorce lawyer because she told you, right?
Objection.
Sustain, rephrase it, please.
All right, but have in mind the close relationship that you guys have in texting on a constant basis. You'd agree with me that everything from shoes to skirts to makeup to blush to eyelashes, everything, you guys would talk about it in your texts, right?
We would talk about anything and everything.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. When you would talk about that, you also talked about kids, issues with the children, activities, things of that nature. You would share with me,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And when Harry, less than 5 months after they get married, went to see a divorce lawyer, you were the first person she told, right?
I don't know if it was the first person, but she told me, yes.
Told you that, right?
Yes.
And what did she tell you? What was her state of mind when she told you that?
She was conflicted.
Okay, what does that mean?
She had feelings both ways.
It doesn't matter her feelings, he's the one that went to a divorce lawyer, right? First, 5 months later.
I don't recall the details of him going to the divorce lawyer.
You don't remember your friend telling you that he wanted to get a divorce?
They would have arguments all the time. Couples do. They talk about divorce, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it.
Okay, so if I asked you about that, when did they talk about and what did they talk about divorce? You wouldn't be able to tell me one thing because that is not true, correct?
Objection.
I'm not
One
sure. I feel like you're
One
putting
second,
words in my mouth.
excuse me, ma'am. When there's an objection, you don't answer,
She
okay?
needs
I'm
to
sorry.
stop
All right.
talking when there's an objection. Let's take that back.
So if I asked you about that, when did they talk about and what did they talk about divorce? You wouldn't be able to tell me one thing because that is not true, correct?
Objection.
I'm not
One
sure. I feel like you're
One
putting
second,
words in my
excuse
mouth.
me, ma'am. When there's an objection, you don't answer, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. So the objection is sustained. Please rephrase the question.
So the end of January of 2020, you knew that he was going to get a divorce, right? You at least knew that.
I did not know for sure what his plans were. I had never spoken to him about it.
Things changed.
Yes.
You knew he started a divorce lawyer, right? She told you.
They talked about divorce a couple different ways.
Let's say, please focus. They, nothing. Her told you got a divorce lawyer, right? That's all.
Yes.
Okay. And as a result of that, then she took action and got a divorce lawyer of her own, right?
Sure.
And then she went and got a restraining order against him and got him thrown out of his house, right?
That's not how I recall the timeline of events.
Well, it was February 3rd that she got the restraining order. It was the end of January that he started the divorce lawyer, well before she started with him.
Can you restate your question?
Sure. February 3rd is when she got the restraining order throwing him out of his house. Okay? Yes?
Okay.
And it was at the end of January 30th that he had the divorce lawyer send her a letter saying he wanted a divorce 5 months after they got married. You knew that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was February 3rd, after he got the divorce lawyer, that she went and got the restraining order to throw him out of his house, right?
Objection asked and answered.
No, overruled.
I'm over here.
I didn't know if you objected.
Okay. It wasn't objection, it was overruled, so you can answer the question.
Trying to be good. Sorry. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So now, when he was out of the house, you know that she stayed in the house, right?
Yes.
With the 3 kids. And one of the questions the DA asked you was about the car, right?
Yes.
And which car was it that she had?
She would use either one.
I know
She had the Jeep and she had the Mercedes.
Okay, and they were his cars, right?
Yes. I mean, she had 3 kids,
I
so
don't care about the 3 kids.
depending on how many kids she had to cart around.
Right.
Right.
His car, right?
I think once you're married, it doesn't become his and hers, but sure.
No, I guess not. Before they got married, he owned the Jeep, right?
Yes.
Before they got married, he owned the Mercedes, right?
Yes.
Mercedes was over $150,000, right?
I don't know how much it costs.
He liked to drive the Mercedes, right?
I'm not sure.
It
Is
was
this
a-
relevant?
It was a G-Wagon. And listen, she doesn't have to be combative. I'm not sure this is relevant. She lives in Wellesley, no shade to very wealthy people who live in Wellesley and Dover, but it was a G-Wagon. If anybody knows what a G-Wagon is, if you don't know what a G-Wagon is, they're like $250,000. During the panty, I think they were putting $100,000 vig on a G-Wagon. And those of you saying that Katie McLean was a gold digger, no matter what she was, she did not deserve to be murdered. What he's doing here, and he's confessed. So it's a question of, was this premeditated murder or was this a heat of passion killing? And the prison sentence for each of those is very different. It could be life in prison for premeditated murder. For involuntary manslaughter, it could be something like maybe 20 years or less. And that's what we're here to figure out. That's what the jury is here to figure out. This is a great judge. It is, I think this is the big courtroom from the first floor of the Norfolk Superior, where Karen Reed attorneys will do jury selection, where they did a lot of the pretrial stuff before the first trial. And let's refrain from victim blaming, shaming, and disparaging in the chat, because many of Katie McLean's friends and family are here with us today. Rest in peace, Katie McLean.
While he was out, again, I'm over here. Who paid for the car when he was out down in Florida during the pandemic? Who paid for the car?
Sustained.
Do you recall, moving on, now it's after the restraining order was issued and Harry was out of the house, around February 2020, having conversation about him being out of the house, but he wanted to live in the basement. Do you recall that conversation?
Yes, I do.
And he basically just asked if he could please move back in the house and stay in the basement, at least, because of concerns with the pandemic, right?
Yep, I remember that.
And she said no, right?
I don't know if the restraining order had been lifted. I don't think that was allowed, but they did talk about it.
Right. But as far as her agreement or not agreement, you know from a text that she sent you at that time frame that we talked about, that she said no, LOL. She wouldn't let him move into the basement. It's his house.
I think there was an issue about how they were communicating and getting along at the time, and there needed to be a barrier, and that's what she felt.
How would they communicate? They weren't communicating and getting along at the time. He was out of the house in Florida, and she's living in his house with the 3 kids.
So why would he move in the basement then? I don't
Because he had nowhere to live. He's living in a trailer.
Objection.
Sustained. Next
But if
question.
they weren't talking, why would he move in?
Ma'am.
It's
Yes.
confusing me,
You should
sorry.
approach, because you're letting the witness ask questions. She's not supposed to be asking questions of the defense attorney. She's supposed to just be answering the questions. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting a weird feeling. It's not that she's lying. It's just, why be evasive if you were her dear friend? You have 12,000 pages of text messages together. Right. It feels awkward. It does feel awkward. I agree, Donnie, not awkward. Thank you, Katie Clark.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Reddington.
Around March into April of 2020, you knew that she knew that he was going back to Germany.
Yes, I knew he was taking a trip to Germany.
And in fact, that he was going to Germany and he had a job there. She knew that, right?
I don't know if he had a job there, but there was a job he was exploring in Germany, yes.
Okay, and she knew that he wanted to go back to Germany for good, right?
It was an option that he was trying to figure out, yes. As far as I know, he had an option in Florida as well.
And then, but he didn't want to stay with her. He wanted to leave. He wanted to get divorced. He wanted to go back to Germany, not go to Florida with her or anything, right?
That was not my understanding.
Sorry, ma'am. Just, you need to wait a second before you answer the question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to be sorry. Just wait a second to see if there's an objection to the question. So the objection is sustained. Next question.
In March of 2000.
Look at that, a judge interrupting to give instructions and being respectful. And I think she feels attacked as well. I think, Joy, I think you're right.
2020, you would have your husband, Vincent, is it?
Yes.
And Vincent can speak German, right?
He can speak 4 languages.
So that's wonderful. Is the answer yes, he can speak German?
One of the languages he can speak is German.
Yes. And she...
She's coming across as smarmy right now, and I don't like it. I don't like it for Katie. I don't like it for the trial for the man who killed Katie and admitted to it. I don't like it. My son can speak 4 languages. Is it her son that he's talking about? Hang on.
Objection is sustained. Next question.
In March of 2020, you would have your husband, Vincent, is it?
Yes.
And Vincent can speak German, right?
He can speak 4 languages.
So that's wonderful. Is the answer yes, he can speak German?
One of the languages he can speak is German.
Yes. And she, on a number of occasions, would ask you to have Vincent interpret German messages that she received, or he received from Germany, thinking that they were women, right?
I don't think it was that. It was just a language barrier, and to be able to translate would be helpful.
In March, at the end of March of 2020, do you recall her texting you, he's talking to a woman from Germany early. Can you please have Vincent look at it?
If you don't understand a language, the normal thing is to translate it. So that's what she asked him to do.
Just answer the question. Just answer it. Just answer it. You don't have to give this whole narrative. Oh, stop, girl, stop. Please stop. Everything I know about Katie McLean, I love about Katie McLean. So many of her friends have, so many of you that are her friends have written me emails about how wonderful she was. She just wanted to be loved. Like, she didn't deserve this no matter what. But girl, please just answer the questions.
If you don't understand a language, the normal thing is to translate it. So that's what she asked him to do. Yes.
Do you recall her at the same time frame, moving from March into April, that she determined from looking at his phone, he's on Twitter, on the phone, texting like cheating in my face. Do you recall her saying that to you?
I don't recall that specific one, but I do recall that there were conversations about cheating.
Involving both of them, right?
Gotcha.
Sustained.
You remember when they, back when they got married, you remember they went to Las Vegas?
Yes.
You remember that it was a, what do you call it, a conference? I think like a international conference or something. I think it was on aging.
I believe Harry was going to a conference and Katie went along.
Okay. And he was speaking at this conference on whatever the topic was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was when they were in Las Vegas that they got married, right?
Yes.
And that was, you know, everybody was pretty happy about that for a period of time, right?
Of course.
And then she texted you that within 3 weeks that he kicked her out again, go look for a house, is what she told you. You remember that?
I remember that they weren't getting along and there was an option that she would have to look for another home.
Well, it wasn't an option because back before May of 2020, it was his home, right?
Objection.
No, over.
You knew he owned the home, right?
Well, she put money into the home too.
Like
So
what?
she put money from her home sale into the home, and she also helped build the garden in the back.
She didn't put a nickel into that home.
That's not my
Well, it may
understanding.
not be your understanding, but she didn't put a nickel into your home.
That's not my understanding.
Ma'am, you need
So, sorry.
to disregard that last answer, Jarvis.
You recall that she told you, moving forward again to, with the wedding, that she was excited that she got married and there was no pre-up, is what she told you. Prenup, I'm sorry, not a pre-up, prenup. I mean, you remember that, right?
Yes,
Okay. And she was happy about that, right?
I think most women are happy when there's not a prenup.
And why is that?
I think it just means that you're in love.
You're in love.
Yeah, I believe.
Wow, that's a good example of maybe don't ask a question you don't know the answer to, and he thought it was going to work in his favor. But I like that he did it because it shows that he's risky. Why is it? Why is it that most women would be happy that there is no prenup? And she said, well, it means that you're in love. And let's see where he goes from here. Hold on.
Believe in love, and so did Katie.
And you recall having a conversation with her in April of 2020, where you were telling her, I think you're referring to the music thing with the surgery, a story about him going to a little boy to talk him into having kidney surgery. You teared up telling her about that, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall that she indicated again at that same time frame that she texted you that she was determined to move home to Germany? He was determined to move home to Germany. Remember that?
I think that was one of the options for him. I think he had others as well, so it's.
Okay, so
The
I'm
way you're
asking
asking the
about the
question.
text, ma'am, not what you think other options were, might have been, could have been, should have been. She was upset and told you that he was determined to move, and I quote, determined to move home to Germany, is the text she sent you. Do you remember that?
I do.
All right. Do you recall, furthering in that topic, that she then texted you that he had a job offer in Germany and was going to Germany?
I do remember that conversation.
All right. You said that she had a beautiful, cute little house in Sudbury, right?
Yes,
And you'd agree with me that that ultimately went up for sale, right?
it did.
You'd agree with me that it was in foreclosure, right?
I do not have that information. I know she was renting it while she was living in Dover.
Okay, do you recall that in fact she described the house to you as shitty and that actually the basement was flooded right when she was trying to sell it?
I don't believe that certain homes are shitty and certain homes are not, but that might be a conversation someone has when they're frustrated, which I can understand. There was a water, like French drain in the basement. That might have been what she was referring to. So I do recall that conversation.
She's just
would you agree
trying to
with me
defend
that-
her friend. I know what she's doing. She's just trying to defend her friend and make her out to be not a gold digger, and nobody deserves to be killed. Whether the jury is going to understand that or not is another question, right?
There were a plethora of texts from Katie McLean to you talking about having a drink, I'm feeling tipsy, I'm trashed, I'm hammered, I'm hungover. You asked, has your drinking been okay? Do you recall that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall her indicating that she had, and she texted you, and this would be right around the same time that they were supposedly reconciling, that she had a new app to track his location? Do you recall her telling you that?
I do not recall.
Do you recall her indicating, wow, Dr. Tuerk apparently can perform surgery from Home Depot? Do you recall that one? It's kind of funny.
Sustain.
Did she ever tell you that she used the the tracking app, his location? You gotta wait till she objects.
Okay, overruled. She can answer that.
Okay, you can answer.
I answered this already. They both had tracking apps. So yes, both of them had tracking apps.
Okay. But you don't recall her indicating that he was at Home Depot on one occasion? No?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Getting upset.
Moving up again, right to when they were at the hotel and allegedly reconciling, everything was great, that she was texting you, and I quote, "I looked through Harry's cell last night." You recall her telling you that?
Yes.
Here's where he's going with this. He's trying to show a pattern of Katie's, of tracking him, going through his phone, looking at his text messages, thinking that he's cheating on her, and that in the heat of passion, that is what caused him to kill her. This is his whole MO. So now that you know that, think about whether or not you think that he's proving that to the jury. Whether this was a premeditated first-degree murder or something that happened in the heat of passion because of whatever he's going to testify to that he found out that night, that she may have taunted him and said, "I read your messages. I know, I'm going to divorce you and take your house. I don't want to reconcile with you. You're a sucker. You're a sucker. You believed me when I said I wanted to reconcile. You put my name on the deed. And so I'm going to get this house if you divorce me or if I divorce you." So just keep that in mind. That's where this is going.
Do you recall her texting you and saying, "I'm so happy I have Vanessa to look at the phone"? That'd be you, Vanessa, right?
I don't recall that one.
Do you recall her right before the May alleged reconciliation that she texted you for help to find out who is this Stephanie bitch? It's his type, fake blonde, fake tits. Do you recall her texting you that?
Sustain.
I do not recall.
Sustained.
Okay.
She wasn't prepped to know the difference between sustained and overruled, I feel. But there are also some witnesses that are just not probable. They're just not probable. No matter how much prep you give them, they're not going to listen to what you say, and they're just going to say what they want when they get on stand.
Do you recall while they were ostensibly reconciling that she indicated to you that she was still going out on dates with the dentist from New Hampshire?
Objection.
Overruled.
When they were separated?
Do you recall the dentist from New Hampshire?
Yes, I don't recall the timeline you're
Okay, so
speaking.
the answer is yes,
Yes.
right? His name was Michael, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in May of 2020, she told you in a text that she went out on a date with the dentist again, right?
Objection.
Overruled.
Coming in.
Yes?
Yes, they were separated. So
Yes, the answer is yes, right?
Yes.
I know you want to say they were separated, but you knew that she went on a date in May of 20 with the dentist Michael from New Hampshire.
Okay.
Okay. And again, towards the very end of that time frame, she indicated to you that he intended, again, talking about he had the job. Now it's not possibly. He had the job in Germany and he will be leaving. She told you that, right? She was upset.
Well, Yes, it also wasn't the amount of money that he would like, so
Oh, so it wasn't enough money?
that was
Oops.
for him to decide. He was still
Right, but she
deciding.
knew how much it was though, right?
Objection.
No,
It wasn't it wasn't.
Sustain. Next question.
Just gotta stop.
Do you remember her indicating or asking, and again at the time frame of the end of April, beginning of May, can you see if he's back on Instagram and start printing them out? Do you recall her asking for your help for that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that one of the text messages that going back to February 2019, on February 20th of 2019, that you sent a text to Harry and he was asking you about why Katie was having, you're objecting.
Objection.
Sustain.
Well, can I see it side by?
Yes.
If you're confused about what's going on, it is scrolling along the bottom. I type out banners. This is the witness. She's a friend of Katie's, Vanessa Pettigrew. This is Cross. And if you are not familiar with the case, in the show notes, there's a very good overview, and attached to that overview and the show notes is a playlist of, I think that maybe there's 4 pretrial shows that we did on this case. Dr. Harry Tuerk, he was a famous robotic surgeon. His face was on billboards. If you live in the Dover area or neighbor, I think it was Bristol. Where was he? At St. Elizabeth Hospital. He was on a billboard. I think I have the billboard in the thumbnail. Robotic urologist.
Now, when you spoke to the police after you went to the house on was it May 20th? May 15th, I'm sorry. You knew at that point that Harry had signed a deed transferring his house over to her and him jointly, right?
Yes.
And she told you that, right?
Yes.
And she was pretty excited about that, right?
Objection.
Was part of his
1
will,
second.
so it made
Wait,
sense
wait,
to me.
You need to wait, ma'am, until there's an objection. So just wait to answer.
She's not.
Rephrase the question. Sustain.
So you knew that, or she had told you that he transferred or put her on the deed to the house, right?
Yeah,
Correct?
it made sense to me because
So the answer is
that was
yes?
part of his will.
It was what?
Yes.
Was his will? Okay.
Part of his will, like
And when
last
you
will
were
and
speaking
testament.
with the police, this popcorn that you made reference to, when did that come about, that you were going to have that code with Kurt?
We were nervous.
Sorry?
We were nervous
I'm
about,
not asking about you being nervous. I said when. It's a W word. When?
okay,
When was it?
so we were trying to figure out when they were reconciling it.
When was it that you decided to use this popcorn word?
Before Harry moved back into the house.
November.
So that would be around April.
Popcorn was the safe word or the code word for I feel in fear. There may be a situation regarding DV. That was the code word that Katie McLean had with her friends, Vanessa and I think Kurt. And there was a motion in limine to keep out any reference to the word popcorn by the defense, and it was denied because they're able to use it. I think it was by the defense. Mastat, are you here? I can look that up. Might have been a Commonwealth motion, but no, I think it was a defense motion. Okay, here we go.
It was really just a week before you talked to the police that you decided to use this popcorn. You told the police about popcorn a week before, just a week.
Okay.
Is that right?
I don't know. I'd have to check.
He's got the text messages.
So when you were speaking to Lieutenant or Detective Karkowski, and pursuant to this investigation on Friday, May 15th, the police spoke to you, okay? I can show you the report if you want it. It's got coffee all over it, but I can show it to you if you want it.
Okay.
And that they interviewed you about your relationship with Katie McLean, right?
Right.
Remember that? And you've had a chance to review your statement to the police, right? It's only 2 pages. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated to them that this past week, you created the code word popcorn. So that would have been, you know, like May 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that, right?
I would have to check the time.
So if
text.
you want me to
Team Brittany is on it today. She's quick. Well done, girl. Well done.
show you where you told the police it was this past week, have in mind you were speaking to them on May 15th? I can show you where it says that.
I agree. We came up with popcorn before Harry moved in, yes.
Right, you told the police when your memory was a lot fresher than it is today.
It was 5 years
later.
ago.
Right,
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
That in fact, it was this past week that you created the code word popcorn.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Papers, stop with the papers. Reddington.
So,
Headphones on.
I have nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Please be careful. There is a ledge there.
Thank you.
Careful.
Thank you.
That is it for Vanessa Pettigrew. She was the first witness called by the Commonwealth. Girlfriends, boyfriends, no, your texts are open.
Okay, so
Fair
Commonwealth
game.
want to call the next witness?
Many
Yes, Your Honor,
cases.
the Commonwealth would call Sergeant Todd Wilcox, please.
Is this the Todd Wilcox, the Dover police officer that helped her get the restraining order? He was so kind to her. If this is
we
the
got it out. She's fighting around.
Dover officer that I'm thinking of.
The court and the jury.
By the way, Dover has amazing PD, just so you know, when we went over the pretrial. So helpful. Like he knew that, or he thought she was being abused. I'm not sure if this is the exact witness, but let's listen.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Todd Vincent Wilcox, Wilcox.
Are you currently employed?
Yes,
How?
I'm with the Dover Police Department as a sergeant,
How long have you been with the Dover Police Department?
31 years,
How long have you been a sergeant?
almost 25.
What are some of your duties as a sergeant?
To supervise, support the officers that I work with, work on the daily operations, setting up sector assignments and stuff like that.
What shift are you currently working?
Monday through Friday, 7 to 3.
Turning your attention to February 3rd of 2020, were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity?
I was working patrol, but also as a shift supervisor,
What shift?
7 to 3.
And you said you were also a shift supervisor?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Exactly what I said. I just did in charge of like the daily operations, supervising, supporting my officers.
So when you come to work, are you in a uniform?
Yes,
And do you drive a marked cruiser?
yes, I do.
At some point on February 3rd of 2020, did you respond to 29 Valley Road in Dover?
Yes, I did.
Why was that?
We were going to be serving a restraining order
Who were you serving the restraining order to?
to Ingolf Tuerk.
Was he the homeowner at 29 Valley Road?
Yes, he was.
Were you able to serve that restraining order on that day?
Yes, we did.
Do you see Ingolf Tuerk in the courtroom?
I do.
Could you please point to him and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's sitting right there wearing a blue suit, a blue tie.
Could the record please reflect identification?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what you call an in-court identification. Often motions in limine are made to allow witnesses to do an in-court identification, and that is exactly what he did. Pointed at the defendant, described him, and the record will reflect that. Well done.
What was his demeanor when you served him with the restraining order?
He was upset, sad, disappointed.
How long were you at the residence?
Probably half hour, 40 minutes.
Did you go inside?
Yes,
And when you left, did the defendant also leave the residence?
yes, he did.
Turning your attention to May 15th of 2020, were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity?
Patrol and also as a shift supervisor.
And you've already told us what that means.
Yep.
So you were, on that day, you were in your uniform and in a marked cruiser?
Yes,
What shift were you working on that day?
7 to 3, 7A to 3P.
Did you have occasion to return to 29 Valley Road on that date?
Yes, we did.
Approximately what time, if you remember?
It was 12, a little after 12, 12:15, 12:20
And would that be 12 p.m.?
a.m. Yes, I'm sorry, p.m.
Okay. And why did you go to 29 Valley Road on May 15th of 2020?
To conduct a well-being check.
Can you explain to us a little bit about what a well-being check is?
Well-being check is where we get called or requested to respond to a certain residence or could be a car to check on a person, their well-being. Our main purpose is to check on them, locate them, and render any type of assistance that we can.
On a weekly basis, how many well-being checks do you think you do?
Weekly, maybe 1, 2,
How often have you conducted well-being checks in your career?
many.
What did you do when you arrived at the residence on that date?
I arrived, I was the third officer to arrive. The Chief McGowan and Officer Cash had arrived prior to me. They were speaking with Stephen Roca, Ms. McLean's ex-husband, in the driveway.
And if I could just stop you right there. I'm sorry, you just answered my question. I encountered them when they were in the driveway?
Yes.
And when you approached them, what happened?
I was informed by Chief McGowan and Officer Cash that they had concern that Ms. McLean may be in the master bedroom. The door was locked. Mr. Roca had expressed some concern that she may be in there injured.
Then what happened?
We entered the house, went directly to the master bedroom. The door was locked. Officer Cash forced entry using a Hallal tool.
Can you explain to us what a Hallal tool is?
It's a multi-purpose tool that we use to gain entrance into different situations.
It's like a battering ram, a Hallal tool. Somebody can let me know. If you are, your mind is wandering, this is the time to pay attention. This is when law enforcement shows up. The children have found their mom is gone. I don't know where she is. The door to the master bedroom is locked and they need to gain entry into the master bedroom. Stephen Roca, her second husband, father of her 3 children, is there at the scene because he was called there by Vanessa Pettigrew. And this sergeant also had served the restraining order on Tuerk. So for him, this is like really emotional. Like, so if your mind has wandered, come back. Pay attention. This is important testimony.
We carry them in our cruiser. Each cruiser has one.
Were you able to gain entry?
Yes, we were.
And you said it was the other officer that used the Hallal tool, is that right?
Yes.
In what order were you entering the bedroom?
I was the last, the third.
So the officer went in first, and then Chief McGowan, and then you?
Yes.
Where did you go into the bedroom?
I went into the left to where the closet is.
Can you briefly describe the size of the bedroom?
It's a large bedroom. When you entered, the bed was straight off a little bit to the right, and then there's a walk-in closet on the left and a master bath as you wrap around to the right.
Was anyone in the bedroom when you entered? No. Approximately how long were you in the bedroom?
10 minutes, 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes.
And after you left the bedroom, what happened?
We searched the rest of the house.
Approximately how long do you think you were in the house?
We were there probably half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
And after that, did your involvement in this investigation end?
Yes.
Thank you.
See how
I have
collaborative
no
we
further
are?
questions.
See how collaborative we are? I ask you guys a question and you answer. I don't pretend to know everything, and you guys are so collaborative and you help me. A Halligan tool is a multi-purpose tool that is like a pry bar and has hooks on it too, apparently. Right? Like a Halligan tool, claw, pickaxe, and large pry bar in one tool. Thank you so very much. Helps to pry open doors. She didn't ask him anything about what he found in the room, though. That's interesting, right? That Reddington, well. Here he comes. He's got chalks. He's a defense attorney with a purpose. There's the defendant, Dr. Tuerk,
Morning.
Good morning.
with his prison hammer haircut.
So you were there on a well-person check or well-being check, right?
Yes.
There were a number of police officers from various departments, perhaps.
At the time I was there,
First time, just one? Dover?
it was just over, yes.
Okay. And you indicated that one of your brother officers had used the Halligan tool to enter the bedroom.
Yes, sir.
That's the thing that forces the door and splinters the door and things like that, right?
It can, yes.
And it did in this case. It splintered the door and you guys were able to open it and go in.
Yes, sir.
And when you went in, one of the things that you saw would be the bed in the master bedroom, right? Do you remember seeing the bed?
I did not, I saw it, yes.
Okay. I'm going to approach you, sir, with an item that's been marked, it's for ID, excuse me.
It may be graphic,
Do you
the photo. They may not
recognize that
show
as
it.
being the bedroom?
One second. Was it marked for ID?
We haven't had a chance to mark them for ID yet this morning.
Why don't we, can we just do it right now? Nancy, what's the next letter? Okay, all right.
Judge Stanley Tucci in the Norfolk Superior Court. And look, it's Madam
Okay,
Court
thank you.
Reporter making a special
Check your
appearance.
ID. Do you recognize that, sir?
So to be honest with you,
If you don't, that's all right.
I don't. I mean, this has happened 5 years ago. I came in from, if this was the way the bedroom was set up, I would have come in from the other side.
The other side meeting over here.
Yeah, I would have entered in here if the bed was, if
I
that,
don't recognize that.
I don't.
It's okay, fair enough. You have to, Do you have any memory of anything evidentiary use when you went into the bedrooms, like broken glass or?
Absolutely not, no.
Then you continued on with your investigation for the well person looking, right?
Yes.
That's all, okay, thank you.
What about?
What
Absolutely
was the
not.
purpose of going into the bedroom?
To find Miss McLean, to offer any type of assistance. We were just trying to locate her.
And once you realized she wasn't in the bedroom, what did you do?
We exited the bedroom and then searched the rest of the house and then the exterior of the house.
Approximately how long do you believe you were in the bedroom?
5-10 minutes at most, because the only thing I remember is having dispatch call the phone to see if we could hear it ringing while we were in there, and that may have taken a couple minutes, several minutes.
And you didn't make any other observations of the bedroom except for the fact that Ms. McLean was not in there?
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
And when you were looking in the house, would you recall that you guys didn't go in the basement area at all?
So I did not go into the basement. We kind of went into our different directions. One of the officers did. I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Beatty, do you want to call your next witness?
May I approach, please?
Yes.
One second. Okay, I think we're a little behind. Let's see if we can fast forward. Her name is Nancy. The court reporter's name is Nancy. Madam Court reporter's name is Nancy. Is that why someone changed their name to Fancy Nancy? Thank you, 13 Flags. They are at sidebar. My understanding is it's only going to be a half day today, so let's see how far they get. We miss you, Nancy. Look at Mastad says Madam Court reporter is so nice. I love that for her. Thank you, Mastad. He's not shackled because it is, he's not shackled. Tom Gillis. Hey, Tom Gillis, the golf instructor. It can be deemed prejudicial in front of the jury. So I guess somehow they were able to get him out of shackles. Going back to the chat. Twilight Zone 913, thanks for the 10, says she's definitely snarky, referring back to Vanessa Pettigrew. However, if my best friend's husband hurt her, I most certainly would be combative with the person defending, so I'm giving her grace, but she needs to chill. Thanks. Hi, Nina is here. Isn't the jury seated right next to the witness? Yes. Karen Reed defense team said the jury can't see the witness. How's that? I think they moved the witness stand. I don't have confirmation of that, but I think they did. This is in the bigger courtroom. Lori Lake is here from Canada. Context is missing from these texts. Consider in-person and telephone conversations that we are not aware of. Yes, correct. She was not asked about any of those because that would be hearsay. And for those of you who are just joining, welcome. And if you're not familiar with this case, there are show notes below the description of this video that will catch you up a little bit on the basic details of the case without giving away too much. And there's also a playlist that we did pre-trial where we dug deeply into the documents of this case, including Proctor's police reports. Proctor is involved in this investigation too. Hi, EOEDIV chop. I don't know what that stands for. Maybe there's some, maybe StreamYard is not showing me some emojis or something that are in there. It's Sallyport video inverted. LOL. Sorry for the confusion. Love your commentary. Thank you so much for loving my commentary. But I don't know what you're referring to as far as the Sallyport video, except that's a different case. And I'm a little far behind in the chats. And yeah, justice for Katie is what we're here for, right? They're at sidebar. He has a shock vest on him, says Kokomo, Indiana. Well, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you so very much. You guys are so collaborative here. I love the way that we can work together. The judge's name is Mark Hallal, Hallal. This is in Norfolk Superior. This case had been assigned to Justice Cannoni when the whole reshuffling happened. It was reassigned to Judge Hallal. Brian Walsh was reassigned to a different judge. And Judge Cannoni was specifically assigned to continue with the re-persecution of Karen Reed. So that it answers the question here. Do they not consider him a threat? Well, he's wearing a shock vest, which we did not know. Thank you. Melanie B says he's massive. He is. Yeah, I'm not sure if they moved the witness stand. I would need confirmation from someone that has been in the courtroom to straighten out that argument for us. Mastad said this witness needs to just answer the question she's asked and only the question she's asked. That's her job as a witness. Yes. Yes. And she was corrected several times. And you must be behind in the stream. Thank you, Tanny Simmons, who says all of these trials just reaffirm how important it is to choose your partners wisely. Don't rush it. People lose their lives or throw them away. Sad. It is very sad. Yes, it is. Justice for Katie McLean. Justice for Katie McLean. They're at sidebar. Ham Sandwich is here. Do prosecutors consider their likability as much as the credibility of the witness? I think so. I feel they directly relate to how a jury views their testimony. Yes. Yes. That's why. But like I said, I think that this witness is just one of those witnesses that you can't prep. You can't have them change their demeanor because Vanessa has a very hard time being fake and she is angry about the murder of her friend Katie. And so I can see where she's coming from. But yes, likability is very important, as is credibility, because you could be the most credible witness in the world, but if the jury doesn't like you, they might disregard your testimony. Same thing goes for attorneys. Likability is important.
Thank you. Kurt Bannister, please.
The CC called the ADA Miss Baby. Was Cassius called the ADA Miss Baby? Oh my goodness. Her name is Miss Beatty. Lisa Beatty. Says bloviating Brennan.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Step on up and have a seat.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you just take that microphone and pull it as close as you can to you? Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Could you please state your first and your last name and spell both of them?
Kurt Fandenstiel, C-U-R-T, P-F-A-N-N-E-N-S-T-I-E-H-L.
Okay, thank you. How old are you, sir?
55.
And where do you live?
I live in Dover.
Okay, how long have you lived in Dover?
About 20 years.
Okay. And can you tell us, what do you do for a living?
I'm a heavy equipment operator.
And so who do you work for currently?
Town of Sherburne.
What kind of work, what does it mean to be a heavy equipment manager?
A heavy equipment operator.
Operator, sorry.
Operator operates like front end bucket loaders, excavators, heavy machinery, six-wheel dump trucks.
All right, I'm going to ask you, sir, can you just scooch forward a little bit? That microphone is like 2 inches too short. Okay, thank you.
Look at our Karen that we can
how
hear.
long have you worked for the town of Sherburne?
I'm on my 5th year.
And prior to working for the town of Sherburne, where did you work?
I did tree work with a guy in Dover.
And about how long did you do that?
About a year and a half.
And prior to that, what did you do?
I ran my family's business.
Okay. And did you ever do any plowing work?
Yes, I did. I applied for town of Dover and Sherburne.
About how long did you spend doing that?
For Dover, I did it 9 years.
And how?
Kurt, when you were plowing, would you be able to see a body on a lawn in the snow? And just a little bit, like 2 inches of snow. Do you think you'd be able to see a body on a lawn that was not far off the curb? I'm asking for a friend.
About Sherburne.
The whole time during the winter for the last 5 years. I'm on my 5th year.
Okay. And have you lived in the same house in Dover the whole time that you've lived in Dover, or have you moved?
I've moved.
Okay. How many houses have you had in Dover?
4.
Okay. So I won't make you go through all of them, but in 2020, where were you living?
85 Walpole Street.
85 Walpole Street. And can you just tell us generally where in Dover is 85 Walpole Street?
Does it matter? The jury may not live in Dover.
I think about a mile from the fire station.
Okay.
How far is it from Harry's house?
And by the way, did you have any sort of a professional relationship with the fire station?
Yes, I do till the present. I'm a will call.
What does that mean?
We're on a paging system where you get called whenever there's a fire or a tone goes out. We go. I'm not full time.
Okay. Does Dover have a full-time fire department?
No.
All right. And 85 Walpole Street, what kind of house was that?
It was an old farmhouse.
Okay. And when you say old, about how old?
It's a circa house.
Hundreds of years?
18, I don't even know, 18 something.
Like this courthouse maybe even?
Maybe, yeah.
All right. And Are you familiar with 1 Francis Street in Dover?
That was across from my backyard.
Okay, so was it possible to travel from your backyard to 1 Francis Street?
Yeah, I mean, you have to walk around like a big fence.
Okay, where was the fence?
The fence was between my yard and then their house.
Okay, so even though the 2 houses weren't directly behind each other, did the backyards on some level sort of back up to each other?
I'm sorry, say again, did they back up to each other?
Yeah, parts of the backyards.
Yes. I mean, my house kind of went this way, facing like, there's a pond, facing the pond. And then their
That's
house
the
was
pond
here.
where they found her body.
And the pond, was that closer to 1 Francis Street or closer to your house?
Theirs was closer because my house is set back from it with a driveway in between and then a garage.
Okay. And do you have children, sir?
Yes,
How many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
Okay, overruled. He may answer it.
He said objection relevance. So this judge does allow them to state grounds. We were confused because sometimes they object without a reason and sometimes they object and give grounds. He overruled it. But somebody's wondering why you think he's being defensive already. Wait until you see what text messages Katie may have sent him. That could be why. He hasn't watched the prior testimony. I'm sure he did not watch the opening, but if you guys watch the opening with me, you may know what's coming.
And at some point, did you become acquainted with Katie McLean and Ingolf Tuerk?
Yes.
Do you know when that was?
I'm not exactly sure when it was. We met at like the Legion, American Legion.
The American
and was
Legion?
the American Legion that you met at in?
Wait, are you the one who overheard the juror in the Karen Reed case talking about being on the jury for the Karen Reed case, the American Legion? How many American Legions are in Norfolk County? I have so many questions now. Small world, huh? Okay. I got to hear that again. Sorry.
When it was, we met at like the Legion, American Legion.
That's where he
and
met
was the
Katie
American
and
Legion that you met at in Dover?
Yes.
And if we use May of 2020 as a reference point, how long had you known Katie McLean and Ingolf Tuerk in May of 2020?
Maybe 1.5, 2 years. I'm not 100%.
Okay, but it wasn't just a few weeks or a few months?
Right.
Okay, it had at least been a couple of years, would you say?
Yeah, maybe a little over a year.
Okay. And do you know when you met them, whether you met them together or separately?
I don't remember that because I mean I was at the Legion drinking, so I'm not 100%.
Everybody drinks at the American Legion, apparently.
And when you first met them, you know, whether it was 2018 or 2019, how often would you see them?
I mean, it wasn't like every day or all the time. It was like football games and maybe birthday party or something.
And where would you see them?
At their house.
Okay. And where was their house?
I'm drawing a blank.
Do you remember the street?
No, I can't think of the street.
That's okay. If I said 29 Valley Road, would that sound familiar?
Valley Road, yeah.
Okay. And how would you get from your house to Valley Road? How far away is it?
Maybe a mile.
Okay.
Or less.
A mile or less?
Yeah, I don't remember.
And when you saw Katie McLean and Ingolf Tuerk, would they always be together or would you see them separately as well?
No, I think that I saw them together.
Okay. Would you ever spend time with them separately?
Once I think I went with Harry to the dump.
Was it on a military base to crack his SIM
And
card?
do you know about when that was?
I don't.
Okay. And had you met their children?
Yes, when I was at their house.
Okay. Both sets of children? Both Katie's children and Harry's children?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And had you met any of their ex-spouses?
No.
And did you have both of their cell phone numbers?
Yes.
Okay. And would you communicate with both Katie and Harry on their cell phones?
Yes.
Your Honor, would this be a convenient time to stop for the day?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, man, they're gonna stop for the
You may
day.
step down, sir.
Half days only in this trial, apparently. There he is, Judge Mark Hallal. We like him so far. I'm gonna take a poll after. I'm gonna see if we like him.
So we're going to break for the day. You can leave your notebooks right on your chairs.
But will Trooper Fanning get the
We'll
notebooks?
Start again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We're going to go until about 1 o'clock again tomorrow. That's probably going to be the same schedule for Monday, but I'll give you more information about Monday when you come in tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going on a view, so we're going to go to some of the locations that were mentioned during the course of testimony
Get a field trip
today.
tomorrow.
So please wear comfortable footwear. We'll take a bus out to 3 specific areas, and then we'll come back to the courthouse.
Absolutely.
Okay? Please remember the instructions that I gave you all individually when you were selected as jurors. If you leave the courthouse together, you can talk to one another about everything except the trial. Don't discuss the trial at all among yourselves. Don't discuss the trial with anybody else. No independent research. So please don't Google anything. Don't look anything up. Don't have anybody else do that.
So come on the YouTube and watch
No
me.
texting or posting, nothing online about this case or any other case in this building. By the same token, please do not talk about any other case that's going on in this building. The Reed case, as you know, is starting next week. I told you that. You are not to talk about that case or follow it at all. Exactly the instruction in this case as well. Please keep an open mind. You've heard 1.5 witnesses so far.
They also cannot follow the Karen Reed case. Is that what he just said? This is why the buffer zone was extended, I think, because this trial is also happening. But did he say you're not to talk about that case or follow the Karen Reed case at all either? I wonder why. That's kind of weird, right?
That
Hold on.
case or follow it at all.
I'm here
Talk
again.
about any other case that's going on in this building. The Reed case, as you know, is starting next week. I told you that. You are not to talk about that case or follow it at all. Exactly the instruction in this case
Oh, right.
as well. Please keep an open mind. You've heard 1.5 witnesses so far.
Because many of the same witnesses are going to be in this case. Proctor, Buchanan, Garino, Tully, Fanning, because of the troopers involved. Duh. Thanks, you guys. See, I love you guys. You don't make me feel stupid when I forget it.
Please keep an open mind. You haven't heard all of the evidence. To the extent you see anybody having anything to do with the trial on your way out of the courthouse or even out in public, just avoid them. They've been instructed not to talk to you, so please don't engage with them. The first thing that I'll ask you tomorrow when you come in is if you're able to follow the instructions as I did today. I trust you'll all say yes, and we'll go from there. Again, 9 to 1 tomorrow, and wear comfortable footwear. Okay, thank you for your time and your patience and your sacrifice today. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
All rise, please. Jurors exit.
Everybody bring your Birkenstocks. Bring your Birkenstocks, everyone. There's Harry Tuerk.
Can I see counsel at sidebar?
Reddington said in his opening, our judge is Stanley Tucci, reminiscent of Stanley Tucci, that Katie may have sent some booby pictures to Kurt, and maybe that's why he's so nervous on the stand and defensive, because he was in receipt of the booby pictures. There was also a motion in limine to preclude any reference to Katie McLean's plastic surgery that she may have had with regard to boob jobs that allegedly Harry paid for. I'm not sure if that's coming in or not. Thank you, Tanny. We went over that. And thank you to Ham Sandwich. We talked about that. Audrey said her name is literally Sally Port Video in reverse. I'm not picking up what you're laying down. Thanks, BC, for hanging out for a month with me. Dump Truck Daddy looks like Steve Martin. Thank you, Mrs. Bouquet, for your super sticker. And tomorrow they're going on a field trip. They are going on a field trip to a couple of locations. I think they're going to, are they going to the pond? Mastad, if you're here, can you remind me what that motion in limine was? See if they say anything else in open court before we wrap this for the day. Let's take a look. Let's see if we have any more questions. Thank you, Sherry, so much for your Venmo. She says motion for a modesty shield on that witness stand obviously was not set up by a man. We can do better, JFC. You know what? I wasn't even watching, but now that you've said that, I'm curious, and I gotta have to go back and look. Thank you so much. I've just been told this is the big room upstairs next to where the Karen Reed room is. That's what it seems like. So I don't know. That's from someone who is not in the courtroom right now. So I'm not sure if they moved back to the big courtroom. If you know, you know, you can tell me in the chat. It is a breath of fresh air, this judge, right? Thank you, Jonas, for your Venmo. Says legal, thank you for legal commentary. Thank you so very much. Short and sweet. I appreciate you more than you know. Okay. It's interesting that this trial is only going to be half days, and I wonder if that's to keep them away from, ending the day at the same time as the Karen Reed jury selection ending, because I think they're doing full days. We'll see. We shall see. Taking a trip to Disneyland, says JBZ. Cape Cod Cred says I'm having a like vibes for the judge so far. All right, they're coming back. Let's see if he has anything else to say. Judge Hallal. Or if he's just letting them go. Catchy says, how many of these jurors hope to be on Karen's case? Well, it only took them 2 days to pick this jury. And they're back to the clock. Not a lot of sirens today either. They have a big screen. He was allowed to use chalks in his opening, Kevin Reddington, which is something that we're not used to, right? The difference in judges between this Judge Hallal and Judge Cannoni is stark. It's a stark difference. And like Confetti Fairy says, I like this judge so far too. It's a nice change. It is. Here's a reminder. I will not be streaming tomorrow because I am traveling. However, I do believe that Broken Baker is live streaming this trial. And so if you choose to not, risk your life in the law and crime chat, you may want to go hang out with Broken Baker. He's awesome. He's from Denmark and he's a YouTuber and he's very cool. And we like Broken Baker. I don't know if any other friendlies are streaming it. If you know in the chat, I will allow it. I will allow it. If you know in the chat, let me know. But I do highly recommend Broken Baker. He's a very sweetheart. I know. How dare me? How dare me? But they're going on a field trip tomorrow, so it's not going to be a big a big whoop. It might be a very short day. I don't know if they're even going to take any testimony tomorrow. So you know what? We might not miss a thing until we come back on Monday, for which the court day will be 9 to 1. Tom says half days because wait, that flew by fast. Tom says half days because the Norfolk County DA's office cannot afford lunch after the Karen Reed retrial. That may have something to do with it. Yeah, maybe they can't afford to pay the jury lunch. That may be. And so there you go. So Broken Baker, highly recommend. Patrick was in the chat today, and he is Stephen Rocca, who is the father of Katie McLean's 3 children. Patrick is Stephen Rocca's nephew. He will be going to court on Monday, he said. And so we are welcoming him into the chat. Thank you for being here. And rest in peace, Katie McLean. She didn't deserve this, no matter how much they want to try and portray her as a gold digger who may or may not have been tracking her husband, cheating on him, still on dating apps. She still did not deserve to be brutally killed. The reason that there is a trial here, even though there was a recorded confession, because guess what? The MSP knows how to record a confession. If you want to catch up on this trial, the playlist is down below. And so we went over all the police reports, all the MSP reports, a lot of the same players as in the Karen Reed trial. They did record his confession, and this was all the way back in 2020. Can you believe it? This is going to be a matter of whether he's charged with first-degree murder, which requires premeditation. And Kevin Reddington, his defense attorney, who I'm liking so far, is trying for a lesser charge. He's trying to get him on heat of passion type manslaughter, which there's a big difference in sentencing. And so there's that. Broken Baker is awesome, and he does visual aids. LOL. So if you do go there tomorrow, tell him I sent you, because tomorrow I'm taking a day off and a very much needed weekend. So thank you all for being here. Please smash the like button on your way out. It really helps to share the stream. Let other people know about this trial. It's happening in the same courtroom as Karen Reed, same courthouse, different judge. It had been assigned to Judge Cannoni, and now it is with Judge Hallal. Thank you, moderators, for keeping the chat classy. We are amazing. It was a good day. Today was a good day, right? Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy, do all the things that YouTube likes, and smash the like, comment respectfully, tell people about this case, because people need to know that there may actually be a fair trial for a defendant in the Norfolk Superior Courthouse in Dedham, and we may be watching it. Peace, my friends. Have an amazing rest of your day. I'll see you real soon.